Welcome, everybody. It is November 13th, 2025, and please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly after for rescheduled on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals in the town of Chatham. If anyone is recording the meeting, including the use of AI note-taking apps, please notify the chair. That's new. Anybody? Nope. Okay. Pursuant to Governor Healey's March 28, 2025, signing of Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, extending certain COVID measures adopted during the state of emergency until June 30th, 2027, regarding open meeting law, this meeting of the Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted both in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings provided for in the order. A reminder, anyone who'd like to listen to this meeting while in progress may call 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 651-816-755#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams link posted in the agenda. This is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, Xfinity Channel 1072, but despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. However, we'll post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. In accordance with town policy, the public can speak to any issue, hearing, or business item on the agenda during the meeting when recognized by the chair. And that would not apply to our Main Street portion of this, which we're going to start with, because that is a public hearing that's already closed, and I'll get to that in a moment. The way procedural steps are as follows. We do a roll call vote of all board members. Then we ask if anyone is online by the phone. Just make sure that we can identify you. Main Street, the board will continue. We will continue our deliberations. No public comment will be allowed. And then when we get to Meeting House Road, the following procedure will take place. Hearing notice will be read by staff. Sarah Clark on my right. Your representative, in this case, Penrose, will represent first. I will read or summarize all letters received by the board. And I just want to point out that we're not going back. We never meant to leave our rule that all letters should be one page at 11 font, and anything longer than that will not be read. So we've had that rule, and we've kind of strayed from it a little bit, but we're going back to that. So that will apply today as well. I'll do the best I can to summarize. All right, next, anyone wishing to comment on the application may speak up to 3 minutes, and there's a clock, as you know, and anyone in the room first needs to be recognized, followed by anyone online. The applicant may rebut written and oral comments. Members of the board will ask questions, and will vote to continue the application to a date certain. All votes are taken by roll call, and at the end of the meeting, we close via a verbal confirmation and note the time of adjournment. Okay, that being said, first we do the roll call.
David H. Veach, I approve this format.
David S. Nixon, I approve.
Paul C. Semple, I approve of this format.
Lee Hovey, I approve.
Stephen D. DeBoer, and I approve.
Virginia Fenwick, I approve.
Oh, and Randy Potash, I approve as well. We don't have any minutes to do right now, right? No. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're going to start with Main Street, and we're going to continue our deliberations, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of a review to where we are. So, let's see. Last time, Mr. Veach, David Veach, a voting member, he indicated that he is in favor of the project, and Ed Acton, who's not here today, associate member, indicated that he is also in favor, and he sent a letter just reiterating what he said last time. I'm not going to read that, but it is online. We also heard from Lee Hovey, associate member, and she is in support of the project. And now today, we will continue with the rest of us, and we're going to start with Paul Semple in a second, because I also want to say something else. So since, I think, May, we have negotiated certain conditions with Penrose, and there's a whole list of them. I'm not going to go into details about them, but I'd like today for us to understand right now that these are things that we've already agreed to and that we can work on and achieve. First of all, there were building heights for all 10 buildings, and we have come to an agreement about those. Next, we've come to somewhat of an agreement, but maybe we need to deal with that today. Safety for crossing on Main Street. The police officer wrote a letter, and Penrose agreed to provide safe connection the best they can, but we all know that at the end of the day, the state needs to provide permission for that. So we might need to hammer that out a little bit, but we're essentially in agreement the best we can be right now. Trees and vegetation. Penrose is very generous and continues to be about agreeing about all things trees. We've learned that, and I feel very comfortable that not only will we have several trees, more than we had from the beginning, but also in the event that, we have 3 votes, they'll also do irrigation with a well, and we can work on the language of that. So then also, let's see, we have setbacks. We've agreed to substantial changes in setbacks. The exterior of the buildings, we have talked about that, and that doesn't seem to be like a big ticket issue. Then we have, let's see, the management building. At this juncture, we have a management building that's half the size of what the original plan came in, so we have that much of an agreement as to that. Parking, 1.52 spaces, with a recent agreement of every unit, all 48, having their own spot. And then resident amenities, it's probably an easy one to negotiate, bike racks, gas grills, and we can deal with that later. So I just want to go into the rest of these deliberations with the idea that these are things that probably could be worked out, but what I want to know is this enough? So I'm going to ask Paul now, what would your, tendency be towards a vote? And is there something else that you think you would need, or very specific as to any of these, or some, where are you, Paul?
Okay. Well, let me first of all say thank you to all the participants who have given us a lot of input, both pro and con, with respect to the proposal. That's come from both neighbors on the Barn Hill Road area and Jesse's Landing, and also from other residents in town, all of whom have devoted a great deal of time and effort to giving us that input. This proposal was unanimously supported by the Select Board and the Affordable Housing Trust. It's the project that we've been given to work with. I think it's important to realize it is not some things. It is not, for instance, provide for home ownership. This provides for a rental arrangement. So we don't have that option before us. It also, you should realize, it is not necessarily housing for police, fire, teachers, and so forth, since their family income may be sufficient that they would not qualify for all of this housing. So those things are things that we should realize are not part of it, but it will provide a needed affordable housing in Chatham for a large workforce that we all depend upon. So I'd like to review 4 aspects of the project that we've dealt with in our due diligence in taking a look at the project. The 4 aspects are streetscape, landscaping, the crosswalk, and density. First of all, with the streetscape, this is something that we tend to be very aware of on the zoning board because we deal with streetscape on almost every application. And we're really trying to find out whether things will fit into the neighborhood based on a number of things. It's often very difficult because we're dealing with architectural plans, site plans, and it's difficult to envision how that final thing is going to look. And there are times when we look back at what we've approved and say, geez, how did that get by us? That isn't quite what we were hoping it would be. But, so that's the reason why we try to look at these projects from that viewpoint. Also, with this project, we're on Route 28, and we're on a road that is traveled by 90% or more of the Chatham residents who will not necessarily ever go into Buckley's property, will not necessarily be residents there. So it's a property that is exposed to not only Chatham residents, but also all the people that visit Chatham coming down Route 28. So as a result, as you may recall in these hearings, we've looked at the village at Nauset Green in Eastham, which was a project also done by Penrose, and somewhat similar to what we're doing, although on a different size property. And I asked a series of questions over hearings because I did not understand how we were going to end up with what was really deposed as the result of our project. So I looked at photographs that were provided by one of the people who gave us input based on the village at Nauset Green. And I looked at the trees that were depicted in those photographs. And in order to get some feeling for what we were looking at here, I measured the caliper of the trees that were there. And the caliper of the trees, which is basically the diameter, was approximately, in this case, 7 inches. In this case, 3 inches. So I had questions with the representatives from Penrose and with Attorney Singer about the question of, well, what were we trying to do with the plantings that were going to be in front of the buildings on Route 28? And Attorney Singer corrected me by saying that we were not attempting to hide the buildings, we're attempting to decorate the site. And I think that that is in fact the case, that we're not going to be hiding buildings. We received a memo from Jeff Dykens before our last meeting, in which he said that our concerns about the streetscape and the tree sizes were overwrought. I thought about that. I looked at the situation, and I came to the conclusion that what he was politely saying is simple: get real. I mean, let's get your head going here. In fact, the neighborhood that we're talking about is Ocean State Job Lot, it's Cream and Cone, it's Shop Ahoy Plaza, it's Dunkin' Donuts, it's several motels, all of which is true. We're trying to preserve the area with as much as we can in terms of an attractive new project. But I think as a practical matter, we're going to see a new subdivision, a housing subdivision. And that we should expect to see that, even though we will try to do the best that we can in terms of the landscaping in front of it. But it's a needed subdivision. It's providing housing that we do need. So I think we need to, in this case, go beyond what we would normally accept perhaps in streetscape and say, okay, that's where we're going to be. We'll do the best that we can. Perhaps we can increase the size of the diameter of the caliper in some of these trees on the very front. But I think to that extent, we're probably dealing with streetscape the way it is. On landscaping, Ed Acton, one of our members, made the observation about 2 or 3 meetings ago that there was a lot of green space shown on the plans. And he suggested that if there's going to be green space, he didn't see a well, and he didn't see any irrigation. And he thought that that was necessary in order to provide the kind of greenscape that we were looking at. The original design did not call for a well or irrigation. And therefore, they looked at that question and said, well, if you want to have a well, we'll put a well in. That was fine, except that I then asked them to go back to the town and say, is this consistent with what you in fact want in the town, given that we are trying to conserve our water and we're under water restrictions on a regular basis? As it turned out, they forgot to do that. And at the last meeting, they talked about the irrigation system and the well as being perhaps temporary. And then it seemed to be that they were scrambling a bit. And I think we needed to have some further discussions with respect to that. From my viewpoint, I would prefer not to have a well. It seems to me that we need to consistently maintain a town position which would decrease the amount that we depend on wells. We should be using native species and drought-resistant plants, and attempting to use irrigation or water only to establish the plants and not continue them on. So we can perhaps have some additional discussion about that. One thing that concerns me is that wells which are supplying water for landscaping are not subject to a lot of the restrictions that are applied to the rest of the town. For instance, we're not, as I understand it, restricted, if you're on a well, to the kinds of watering on Tuesday or Wednesday and not doing it on other days. You're pretty much open to do whatever you want to in that line. But from my viewpoint, we're all dealing with town water when we're dealing with the aquifer. That's where our town water comes from. And therefore, I think I would prefer not to see a well. I would prefer to see water used to simply establish the new plantings that are coming in, and then for them to take off on their own. But we can have that discussion in the board. The crosswalk. The crosswalk issue came up initially when Steve Buckley talked about the fact that when he was living in this area, at that property, it was common for children to play in the woods across the street. And he thought that there was a need for a crosswalk, not only to deal with children going across to the property across the street, but also because the sidewalk ends on that side of the road that goes all the way into Chatham. And therefore, he thought it was important that we have a crosswalk, an additional crosswalk at the new property that we're establishing under this proposal. So as a result, Penrose has said, yes, we will put in a crosswalk if a crosswalk is allowed by the state. It has to go through state approval. And in order to get state approval, there's going to need to be an advocacy by Penrose and by the town. That kind of an advocacy may or may not result in a crosswalk actually being established. So we then get, I think, to the second question, and that is, do we require a crosswalk regardless? In other words, if a crosswalk cannot be installed, do we find that we can't put the project in? I don't think we need to go to that extreme. Where we're at is we have the possibility that people will be crossing the road at that location, and they may not have a crosswalk that they're using. But on the other hand, if you look at the road, Route 28, from Dunkin' Donuts down to Crawl Road, there's only one crosswalk in that entire space. And the only crosswalk that exists there is at the cemetery, just past Agway, going towards town. So when you think about it, it's possible for an awful lot of people who have been living in the south side of Route 28 to deal with the question of dealing with the road and having children and educating them and educating the adults so that they do that safely. So I think if it's not possible to get a crosswalk, additional crosswalk, approved by the state, that we can deal with that, and that we should deal with that, and it should not be used to simply kill this project. The last issue that's sort of pending, and this the elephant in the room, is the question of density. I made the comment that perhaps at one point we were trying to put 5 pounds into a 4-pound box. And in the course of our hearings, we've done significant efforts to change the project and to downsize it a bit in terms of the overall impact on the area. Building heights have been reduced. Setbacks with neighbors' properties have been increased. Plantings to screen the project from neighbors have been increased. The size of the community building has been reduced. Penrose has agreed to install an additional sidewalk or crosswalk and advocated for the state. A well has been proposed for irrigation purposes if we accept it. Penrose has offered to paint the buildings different colors if we so desire. Parking spaces and dumpsters have been adjusted to respond to community comments. Lighting has been devised to make a more attractive look, and the sizes of trees along Route 28 have been increased. Additionally, we've put the project through peer review, and it's been through a number of different reviews at our request and expense. The community building has been reduced in size several times, and there are some members who would like to see it eliminated completely. Tracy Cannon, the director of the Chatham Housing Authority, has strongly recommended the community building based on her experience and the experience of other professionals. I cannot see that there makes sense to eliminate the building at this point. It does very little to decrease the amount of density on the site. It's been reduced in size. So the proposal as revised calls for a dense collection of buildings. And this, frankly, is the purpose of 40B and the Affordable Housing Act. Reduction of the number of units from 48 to 42 will not significantly affect density, but simply will give us less housing. If density is the real issue, the reduction of units would have to be much greater. It would not be acceptable to Penrose, and it would not be the proposal that's before us at all, which has been passed by the Board of Selectmen and the Affordable Housing Trust. Several weeks ago, I voted against seeking an independent financial review of the Penrose pro forma. It was apparent to me that Penrose would not accept someone else's interpretation of their business and their proposal. The result would be that either Penrose would withdraw or it would appeal, and the appeal could lead to litigation. Town council has advised that town appeals in these situations are rarely successful. I thought at that time that we could successfully condition the existing proposal and there's no need for an appeal or litigation. In the course of my career as an attorney, I've been involved in a lot of litigation. It rarely ends up in a situation where everyone is satisfied. So I support the existing Penrose application, and in the question of density, I support it at the level of 48 units. I do think that we need to have some conditions, and we've talked about a few of them. Randy has just mentioned a few. But I think that in addition to the conditions that she's talked about, which we need to work on, we should also consider a provision which would allow for leases involving the units to allow for parking of work vehicles of the type used by tradesmen to commute to work in their work. For instance, painters who have vans, people like that who need to be able to use their parking somewhat for commercial purposes, but really only to get back and forth to work. In looking at the housing at the Village of Nauset Green, it seemed to me that the mechanicals were placed in such a way that they seemed to be pretty obvious next to buildings. And that's in part because of the configuration of the end of Nauset Green. But in terms of the mechanicals here, I think we should consider having mechanicals that not only meet setback requirements, but also, if possible, are out of sight. I think we talked about the question of whether there would be a requirement for town approval of any transfer of the comprehensive permit or approval by Penrose, and that approval would be required in advance. I think we should continue to do that. We've talked about local preference and the fact that both Penrose and the state and the town need to apply for a local preference and get that from the state. I think that should be a condition that we apply to this situation. So those are the areas that I think are of concern. I would vote for approval based on those conditions being satisfied through a board discussion with Penrose.
Thank you, Paul. Steve, you are up, if you were voting.
Well, a lot of the things that come to my mind are similar to what Paul just sort of outlined. The issue of density has come up at almost every meeting that we've had since the beginning. And there has been a lot of negotiation early on and maybe to the midpoint of this project about setbacks. And in doing so and increasing those setbacks for the neighbors along Jesse's Landing and Barnhill, in doing so, we then compressed the buildings towards the center of the property. And doing that cost us, I think, some amenities, some green space. The parking was reduced, and the buildings just seem to get closer. Density, I think, can be measured in a couple of different ways. You know, the number of buildings on the property, the number of people on the property, or the proximity of the buildings to each other. And I think all of that got compressed, and we lost some of the green space that I think is going to be important to these folks. And I think Paul made an analogy a couple meetings ago, and he maybe even just said it now. It was like trying to force 5 pounds of material in a 4-pound bag. And I think that sort of applies here. So I wouldn't be opposed really to seeing maybe one of the residency buildings removed or even the administration building removed so that that green space in the center of the property could be enlarged and more amenities be made for the folks that are living there. The function of the administration building could maybe be moved into one of the adjoining buildings along Route 28. Some office space could be carved out of one of those buildings. And I think, you know, that would maybe even incorporate some reconfiguration of the buildings and how they're located on the property to just relieve some of that compression of everything into the central spot. The more green space would also, I think, allow more amenities for the folks that are living there. If you look at these buildings, There's no private space or personal space. There's no decks. There's no patios. There's no balconies. There's no place for these folks to go except in the green space. And, you know, if you're a kid, it's probably a pretty good idea because there's a playground and things there. But there's nothing for the adults. So, you know, I don't know if by having more green space, there could be something done with that area, some gathering areas, some park benches, some places for people to mingle. You know, there's a barbecue pit, but you know, I don't know if you're gonna need a reservation to use the barbecue pit. It might be harder to get a reservation there than at Del Mar, I'm not sure. So, you know, I think those adult amenities need to be expanded in some way, and possibly by removing a building, you might have more space to do that. The vegetation, Paul touched on. I know that Penrose has committed to protecting the mature trees that are on site, but we really need to make sure that that happens, and there should be some sort of substantial mitigation if those trees are harmed. And those trees should be replaced by a substantial amount of greenery if those trees are harmed. I'd like to see the larger caliber trees around the entire property. I don't think anybody here wants to wait 5 or 10 years to see a little sapling grow into something that looks good on the property. Something else that happens is the Conservation Commission, often when they have large mitigation requirements, is to require a 2 to 3 year monitoring period, that whatever is planted survives, and if it doesn't survive, that it be replaced immediately. So I think we should be looking at something like that. I know there's talk of a well, but someone's got to maintain these, and if they aren't maintained properly, then I think there should be some sort of work done to preserve what gets initially planted. The traffic, I'm all in favor of the crosswalk. However, I'm not overly hopeful that we're going to get it. I know it's kind of out of Penrose's control, and it has to do a lot with MassDOT. But I'm wondering if, since there's already a crosswalk by the Dunkin' Donuts, if they're going to allow another one that's within 150 feet or 200 feet of an existing crosswalk. I would like to see one there at the easterly end of the property. It would be a nice to have, I think. I think a lot of these people, from what I understand, don't have cars, so they're going to be using CCRT or some kind of mass transportation or Ubers or something. They're going to have to cross Route 28 at some point. And I think that could be a safety issue. And I don't know if they're going to walk down to Dunkin' Donuts to do it. From looking at the drawings, I don't know why I didn't bring this up earlier, but I also thought that maybe a one-lane or one-way road around the property might be helpful. I know the fire department requires a certain width of the road, but the two-way traffic could be reduced to one-way, and the road may be cut down to maybe 1.5 times the size, or excuse me, 3/4 of the size that it is now. Again, allowing more space for the green space in the interior of the property, and maybe making it a little safer for people to cross the road to get to the green space. I think that's probably it for now. If I would really like to see some consideration given to some of these thoughts, the thoughts that Paul made and the thoughts that I just did, and whatever is coming, but you know, maybe we're still open to a little bit more negotiation for this. Thank you.
For some things that you said, maybe not, I don't know. But Ginny, take it away.
Yeah. So, Paul, thank you for that thoughtful summary of your deliberations, and Steve, yours as well. So I too want to reference the letter that Paul mentioned that we received last time from Mr. Dykens. He emphasized streetscape and emphasized the word where a lot. You know, if not here, where? And, you know, I don't disagree with that. I think that the site, the generosity of the Buckley family in providing that property, and then the work that the Select Board has done over the years, and the Affordable Housing Trust, and many others, I think that is a good spot for affordable housing. But I take it a step further. My objections have been, or not objections, but comments along the way have been not really where, but what goes in there. And I think, I've talked about density quite a bit, and I think that 16 units per acre, which is nearly 3 times what 2 relatively nearby Penrose projects, Eastham and Wareham, which is, I mean, 16 units compared to them is almost 3 times the amount. So I just think that the site is a great site and location. It has a lot of reasons why I think that is a good location. But I think that the fact that it's just under 3 acres, I go back to Paul's comments that he made at one of the original hearings, and he just mentioned it a little while ago, this idea of taking 5 pounds and putting it in a 4-pound or a 3-pound bag is what I see when I see this project. Penrose has been very patient, very accommodating. I mentioned that at the last hearing, and I feel like our board has been very patient and accommodating and listening. And we've heard a lot of feedback, which I appreciate, from the residents of Chatham, through letters, through attending in person, et cetera. But one of the things that I had mentioned from the second hearing on was a reduction of a building, of units, or reduction of the density. And density isn't just the number of units. In my view, it's also the building coverage and just the congestion, Steve's word, in that space. And so Sarah, I don't know if you want to pull up, but I am not a Thad Eldridge, and but I did a little cut and paste from this Penrose project to just to see for myself and maybe share it with others. And I asked Sarah to put it up in case I did want to reference it. This is, it's not to scale, but just the middle part eliminates the management building. And it's from a streetscape perspective, it's, in my view, potentially others' view, a little more attractive. I also think it provides open space, green space, resident amenities, if you view it that way. I didn't put in little benches, but you could easily put in a few benches along for people, you know, either that are, you know, waiting for somebody or just sitting there enjoying the outside. As Steve mentioned, there aren't those amenities in the current buildings as far as patios and decks and things like that. So a little more green space, I thought is a good idea. So this is where I come back to, instead of number of units, Penrose has expressed the importance of retaining the number of units. The town and many residents have expressed, and I believe too, the need for the affordable housing. So, but where I really believe that the open space, there was something that I had pulled out of all my, believe me, you should see my floor at my home. It is covered with papers. But this quote I wanted to pull out because I think it referenced the reduction idea of the buildings, and Mr. Singer has mentioned many times that you need to have a valid reason for the reduction that's potentially being proposed. And what this says is, you know, the question was, is the reduction justified by valid health, safety, environmental, design, open space that directly results from the size of the project on the particular site? So that, in a nutshell, I think the size of the project is too much for that site, but I could vote yes if the management building were eliminated because it would provide less density, improved streetscape, and an open space amenity for residents.
Okay, thank you very much, Virginia. Mr. Nixon, you are the penultimate again, second to last.
Right. Thank you, Madam Chair. When we started this, and it seems like a long, long time ago, I knew nothing about it. It just wasn't on my radar screen. Wasn't at all. I knew we had a committee and we heard a lot of talk and so on and so forth. And then it came to us, and I realized that I better find out what's going on. So I went back in time and tried to start from ground zero. What's there now? What do we need? What has been proposed? What has happened to the neighbors? And as I think you all know here, one of the absolute criteria to anything we do is how it affects the neighborhood. But we can't use our criteria in this scenario. It's like throw it out and just, listen and kind of come up with them. So I did that. And I went back to a gentleman by the name of Abraham Lincoln. And he felt that when there was an emotional issue, there must be a way to get to a solid middle ground. And he ran for the U.S. Senate seat from Illinois in 1858. He ran against a guy by the name of Stephen Douglas. And the debates are very famous, and many history majors here and all that kind of stuff. And the gist of it was, of course, it was about slavery, and, a much more important issue than what we're dealing with here. But what Lincoln promoted, and he lost that election, incidentally, but 2 years later, he was elected president of the United States because of how he set the pace and what was going on. He believed, and he didn't use these words, but this is what historians believe, there has to be a balance between reason and passion. And I'll say that again later. I don't care if you remember anything from today, but please remember that. An emotional issue, a balance between reason and passion. Now, you might say, well, okay, and we've certainly had a lot of passion here, and that's good. But we haven't had a lot of reason. And why is that? Let me just pick up on passion. It's hard to have passion and reason. It backs up. If you're passionate, then you find reasons to justify your passion. Passion in this day and age, best example I can think of is if you're going to go get married this Friday or Saturday, whatever day you want to choose, there's a 50% chance you're going to end up divorced. Why? Because passion drove you to the altar. Reasoning wasn't part of it. And I'm going to talk about my own personal scenario. I have 3 children. They've all been divorced. Passion drove them to the altar, and afterwards, reason came in. So when I say a balance between reason and passion, this is different points of view, different individuals. I want to go back in time to the town meeting in 2021. There's a myth that's floating around that we all voted for this plan. No, we voted to purchase the Buckley property. If anybody had mentioned at that time, hey, incidentally, there's going to be 48 units there, what do you think would have happened at town meeting? It never would have passed. But it wasn't. We all assumed different things. Well, that's our own fault, right? So then what's happened? Subsequent to that, the Board of Selectmen, and I believe it was in September of '23, it was around then, all that, they decided to fire up the Affordable Housing Trust. So 3 members of the Board of Selectmen, as far as I can figure out, were very passionate, and so they drove the bus. And they made sure that anybody appointed to the trust was in lockstep with their feeling about the passion for affordable housing. And that's fine. That's fine. Some of the people they appointed, I would appoint tomorrow to any committee in town. But it lacked those that could bring reason to the discussion. So we ended up, after that, with Penrose being anointed, shall we say. And also, the Board of Selectmen made sure that 2 of their 3 passionate folks were members of this committee. So you get 2 bites at the apple. And those who don't know, it goes from that committee to the Board of Selectmen and then to the town manager. Town manager is not appointed by the citizens of the town. It's not voted in. There are 5 people, the 5 select people. They pick the town manager, renewal, whatever it is. So as you can see, it's a very condensed group that led us to this point. There was an exception to that, an individual that was appointed to that committee, but unfortunately, that individual was squeezed out because of reasons that I didn't agree with. Anyway, so Penrose was selected. They're a for-profit entity, and they were appointed. And best I can figure out, there wasn't a lot of impact during the discussion at the AHT or the Board of Selectmen about other citizens, and there was some, but anyway. And so slowly details have come into the public knowledge. And we come to what happened in May of 2025. 2 things happened. Number 1, at town meeting, the voters said, you know what, having 2 members of the Board of Selectmen on the AHT is a bad idea. Very bad idea. And so, overwhelmingly, town meeting agreed with that. And personally, I would say 0 was the right number, but that's what happened. And then there was a vote for the 2 of the seats on the Board of Select. And what happened was that the vote was a huge wake-up call to me, and that one of the leading individuals from the Board of Select people, was removed from office, and a gentleman was put in his place who had, as part of his platform of running, was, hey, this plan is too much. This plan is too much. It's not good for the town. That individual was the top vote getter. So that rang a bell with me. And if I have to be honest with everybody, I'll tell you, I supported and voted for the 2 incumbents. I did. But what happened in the vote was a huge wake-up call to me. Hey, what's going on? The overwhelming majority of citizens essentially voted against Penrose's plan. Too late, right? Because they'd already made the deal. But the message to all of us is, hey, this is not what the town wants. Not this plan. And we shouldn't forget that. Subsequent to that, the newly configured Board of Select folks have appointed to the AHT two individuals that present more of a reasoning than the passion, which I'm very pleased to see. Very pleased to see. So, when I think of all that, and I think of Penrose and the negotiations, and you've heard about some of the things that they've agreed on, and great, but it honestly doesn't mean much to me, because they're not substantial. To me, when you have a compromise, particularly when there are substantial issues involved, there should have been more that happened on the density. And I think Ms. Fenwick mentioned that continually we would bring up number of units. Not moving on that. Why? Well, because our bottom line, remember, they're for profit, they have a bottom line, and we're not moving on that. Okay, so we understand that. But they have to understand that isn't the way it should happen. It isn't. It's sort of like their way or the highway kind of theory. So I don't see how I can vote for it. I honestly don't. I could come up with conditions. Somebody says, come on up with conditions. Yeah, I could come up with some, but I know the answer, but I'll just read them. I have 4 conditions. Number 1 would be, I was very disappointed there are no studio units in this whole program, and it was explained to me, well, it doesn't work for a number of reasons, okay. But studio apartments are perfect for 20-somethings, 30-somethings, when you're entering a workforce or entering something like that. My wife and I lived in a studio. We lived in the state of Hawaii, and we worked in the hospitality business. Translation, I was a bartender, she was a cocktail waitress. And we had 325 square feet. It was great. It was great. I have a good friend who lives in New Orleans. He lives in a studio appointment. It has nothing to do with the town or what he just does. He pays $800 a month. Great. This is good. Well, this is not something that we're going to see in a Penrose plan. So that would be, I'd want to see 20% of the units as a studio units. Number 2, the administration building that's been mentioned, goodbye. Donate it, get rid of it. It helps the bottom line on Penrose. It's a building they have to build. Number 3, and I don't know if he's here today or not, but Mr. Phillips brought this up. And when I heard this, I said, hey, there's no elevators over there. There's not one single building has an elevator. What's going on? I know, legally speaking, you only have to have a certain number. And they have them, they've figured it out. You can have it here and there and there. But there's a moral compass that says we should not be excluding X number of people from wanting an upstairs unit. They might like it. They don't want somebody over there, or whatever it might be. And when you think about not only folks who have a disability, senior folks, all kinds of people I know, including some members of this board, have members of the family where, well, you got to replace a part now and then. Or you come down, you got a heart problem, you've got a breathing problem, you've got a back problem. How are these people going to get up and down if they had ended up with one of these units? No, they're excluded. We can't do that, not in the year 2025. What are we doing? We just can't do it. So I would want to see elevators put in every building. Well, that's not going to happen. They're going to spend the money because they don't have to. And lastly, going back to the crosswalk and all that kind of stuff, our experience, my experience, and I think Randy's too, and I'm not speaking for Randy in any way, shape, or form, but the children And as Steve Buckley pointed out, it's not only the woods across the street, but it's also the pond behind that. That's where they want to go. I grew up in a neighborhood, there was one area that was wooded, and that's where we went. We played hide and seek with Bill Rose, and that's where we went. Until one day, the developer came along, psh, another house. That was the end of that. The only way, and whether the crosswalk comes or not, my experience with children and fear is they're going to congregate at the beginning of the two drives, and they're going to run across the street. I know, even if you had a crosswalk down here, remember it's got to be all the way to the east. They're going to run across the street. October 16th, Chatham Chronicle. A West Chatham man escaped with minor injuries, not really, crossing Route 28. He ended up being med-flighted to Boston Hospital. He was found unconscious by the rescue personnel. This is not a minor injury. And I don't know how he's doing today, but I hope he's doing okay. Anyway, that was October 16th. October 23rd, same paper. 2 pedestrians struck on Main Street. No crosswalk. Well, these guys, they weren't using the crosswalk. But the same thing happened. These are adults. Never mind a 7 or 8 or a 9-year-old. I don't want to pick up the Chronicle and read resident of, let's say, I call it Buckley Farms, whatever you want to call it, struck by car, condition unknown. I don't ever want to pick up a paper and read that. And that is what's going to happen. The only thing that would happen to reduce that risk is reduce the density. If you reduce it down to, I got a number, 24. I don't think that should be more than 24 units. If you reduce it down to that number, that takes X a number of children out of harm's way. Three things I'd like to say to finish up. First of all, Penrose, you're all pros. I've enjoyed the education. Absolutely enjoyed the education. Thank you. But you're wrong for this community. I do hope you pick up your pieces and leave. I can't control that. I'm just saying that. Number 2, everybody on this board. I can't tell you how proud I am of each and every one of you. Never mind your opinion of whatever. You've really made me proud. We are the best board in town. Difference of opinion, that's okay. You know, it's good. We've done, I know some people think we wasted way too much time. And my final message is to the current members of the AHT. Please, before you put anything out to bid in the future, have Andy talk to Sarah, come on in and talk to us for 60 to 90 minutes. That's all. So we know what you're up to, what you want, and you get a little feedback from us. You know what? We could probably cut 3 to 4 months off of this process. We really could. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And thank you, Mr. Nixon. So, Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, I'll tell you about him later.
Yeah, okay, so, as you know, our usual rules are that we have a supermajority that's required for an application to prevail. This is 40B, and I love the way Mr. Nixon alluded to the fact that the rules are out the window. So all local rules. So what we're faced with here is 40B, and that is only requires 3 of us to prevail. As you've heard, we had 1, we have Paul, that's 2. I'm not going to consider Ginny a yes at this juncture because I just don't think, I think I'd be too far out on a limb for that right now. And we know that Mr. Nixon is a no. So that leaves me. Before I tell you what I like to do, I'm going to tell you how I came to this decision, because you have to give me a couple minutes, too. So last fall, Sarah and I talked about that this was coming, and our schedule is so busy, it was like pre-impending doom. You know, how are we going to do this? And then we're going to get two. And I have the great pleasure of meeting with staff every week. When we reorganize, Mr. Nixon takes it back in January. I'm going to miss that. And I really benefited from that very much. And we talked about how do you do these hearings? And so I went to the rules. Because I'm a lawyer, I actually listened to several meetings from other towns because I wanted us to do a good job. I also listened to the Affordable House Trust meetings and the Select Board meetings. I was particularly interested in the drafting of that RFP, and I'm going to get to that in a moment. And then I looked at the appeal process, and I said, all right, so, you know, a good lawyer knows the law, a great lawyer knows the judge. The judge in this case is the Mass Appeals Court, the Mass Housing Court. I guess it's HAC, Housing Appeals Court, or Committee. Anyway, that's like the judge, because what has to happen is that they have to decide, oh, does the town have 10%? No, you lose. Basically, that's what happens. I was told that by different trainings that I experienced, and I went and looked at the decisions for the HAC. And indeed, it's no, 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 no. If you don't have 10%, you really have pretty much no chance. So then I said, well, as we go into this, I listened to the planning, the HBDC, all the different towns' meetings, and again, looked at the RFP, and I said, well, we're going to have to do the best we can here to get the best project for the town. And if we can't get something that moves the needle enough, it's probably no big deal if it goes to the Housing Appeals Committee because we have not a lot to lose. However, now we've gone through 7 months, and what I've seen happen here is I'm not going to go through all the work that we've done because I sort of referred to that at the beginning. Paul talked a lot about that, and everybody knows that we've made a lot of progress. So the question for me is that enough? Or is it worth seeing what happens on appeal? And I have to say to myself, quite honestly, it's enough. And I'm going to support the project. And I have a few more things to say before we just deal with that. However, the RFP, I want to support everything, a lot of things that Mr. Nixon has said, that Steve has said, and that Ginny has said with regard to this project. The RFP said on it, it's unacceptable for over 30 feet. So that went out there to the public. 30 feet or no. It also said that the storage all the storage was going to be interior. That didn't happen here. Moreover, and this is a big deal, at the Affordable Housing meeting on February 1, 2024, they talked extremely briefly about the idea of a management building. And what was said, and I'm going to quote, is, I'm going to take out this business of a management building. So it wasn't even in the RFP. So we're not the devil here when it comes to that building. It wasn't even in the RFP. Okay? So we're asked to do all these things, and oh, you're mean, you're not going to have a community building, and we need a management building, and blah, blah, blah. And that has been a huge, topic here. And it wasn't even in the RFP. So, I don't have a lot of pity for that. I don't have a lot of, I just don't have a lot of patience for that. Because I think an RFP is important. It says, this is what we're looking for. And then it's no fault whatsoever of Penrose. And one thing that I respect that they did was they came and said, well, we see that you have a 30-foot limit on height. We can't do that. So they didn't try to talk anybody into anything. They just said, we don't do that. And they also said, we like to have a management building. This is the way we do business. So our town manager, who's one of the most professional people I've ever encountered in my entire life, she accepted Penrose as, the vendor. and I'm not sure if that's what you call it, but, you know, and it wasn't 100% in line with that RFP, but I don't like the way that RFP process went down, and I agree with pretty much everything Mr. Nixon said, and I'm glad I didn't have to say it. But at the end of the day here, you know, I think the project that we're going to put together with conditions that we'll hammer out with Penrose, it has a great, it's going to have a beautiful streetscape. I'm inclined to leave in the management building because I think the streetscape will be better. And you know I gave that a lot of thought because I even asked, you know, poor Thad Eldridge on his weekend, put that together for us. And because I really wanted to see, you know, and we had asked for that too, and we didn't get it. And, you know, we have a pretty wealthy, you know, community here. And so when we ask applicants for things, they usually find the money. But, you know, this is different. Well, in any event, I think that we will really get down and dirty with this contract, and we will get a great project that the town is going to be proud of, because it's a lot better than if I vote no and Penrose goes to the Mass, you know, Housing Court for this, and they say, you know, you don't have 10%, you know, you don't have enough good reasons to deny the project. And then they come back and they do the original project after all that. We lose all the different conditions that we would have now. And what I'm probably most impressed with, and I really want to get clear on the irrigation and on the trees and what that management building will look like, I would prefer to leave it in, so that's not going to cause me to vote no. It's just not. And I gave it a lot of thought. Just want you to know that. Been up since 2 o'clock this morning, so. Anyway, and I'm extremely proud of this panel as well, and so appreciative to staff. You know, we've talked more than we needed to probably about this. So this project is going to go forward. I believe it's going to go forward. So, Jay, Talaman, Council.
Yep.
Good afternoon. What's our next step?
So I've been taking notes of what each of the board members' preferences are. And obviously, you all still have to talk some decent sized ticket items in terms of the core conditions. I need that direction to draft the decision. I can draft an approval. It appears it's going to be an approval. I can do about 90 to 95% of it based upon the information that I have, and with Sarah's help on filling in some of the particular information on what the plans are and this and that. And then I think we just need some consensus on where we think we're going on some of the issues we're hearing about today regarding the crosswalk, although I have a pretty good feel of how I would structure that. Irrigation or non-irrigation, management building or non-management building, some of the other landscaping things in terms of what we may want to see enhanced or not enhanced. There were some other little amenity type issues or some of the appearance like issues that we may want to see in a final post-permit plan. So I have most of what I need, but I think that on some of those bigger ticket items that were some of the common themes between the members and the associate members, I think it'd be good to kind of round them out. We don't have to do it all today. We can do it. We're going to have to get back together again within the time period to review the decision and nail it down. So if we're not 100% certain on things like, you know, what we want to do with the crosswalk or the irrigation, then maybe once we see it on the written page, it'll come into focus a little bit more. But I've been taking a ton of notes and I have a good feel for where you're going, but I think it may be good to kind of congeal it into kind of a vote or a straw poll. It's not a binding vote because you could change your mind the next time we get together on some of those bigger ticket items. We've talked about density. I didn't hear a vote for a reduction or an interest in a reduction of the unit density. I heard a no vote, but not a conditional vote on a reduction in density per se. I have heard some stuff on the management building, and I know that that Penrose would be okay with redesigning the management building from their last design to make it a little more faithful to local architecture as well, and that could be a condition. So I think we're in really good shape if we can kind of distill this to kind of Jay, here's our 3 out of 5 vote or 4 out of 5 vote, and go ahead and draft a decision, and we'll see you back here in a few weeks.
So are you asking us to take a straw vote right now in terms of,
Well, I think on some of the key items, so,
Okay.
Ginny doesn't favor the management building. You're okay with it. I know you and I've talked about a redesign of it. It looked like Paul was okay with it. Dave is okay with it. So maybe there's something to do there. The irrigation seems unresolved amongst all of you. I think some good points were made about let's not do it, let's conserve water, but we're going to then need to backfill with some landscaping conditions, which I have some samples of on how to develop guarantees and a final landscaping plan that has an operation and maintenance aspect to it that we would handle post-permit. But those kind of big ticket items that were the common themes between the 6 or 7 of you that have given some thoughts today.
so should we do a vote first? How many of us support 48 units? Is that where you're going?
Well, yeah, I think you can.
And a
I
management
think-
building? Can we
yeah,
could do
I
it
mean,
that
I
way?
think I think so. I mean, if I'm counting votes correctly, it
Yeah.
appears that there's enough votes for an approval.
There was enough
I think
for
there's enough
approval.
votes.
I'd like to give Ms. Fenwick a chance to actually vote, like if we say, okay, how many of us vote yes with 48 units and a management building no larger than the one in the last photo that we got last time? I think it's something like 20,000. I think we all know. 2,100, yeah, that's what I meant. 2,100, yeah. 2,154. So how about if we do that vote first, because those are very big. That is units and the management building. So,
I think you maybe want to separate those two.
Separate 'em?
issues. Yes.
all right, sure. Okay, so can I have a motion on 48 units? Who wants to do that? Paul?
I'll move to approve the application to the extent of 48 units.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
I vote no.
Paul votes yes.
So it's just the units? Okay, I would support 48.
Oh, okay. All right, so that, and I would too, so that's unanimous. I mean, that's not unanimous. That is, I can't even count. Close. 4 to 1. 4 to 1? 4 to 1. Okay. So now, can I get a motion on the management building being 2,154?
2,154 square feet.
I'll move to approve the application with the management building as proposed by the applicant in their last proposal as to that, which was approximately 2,100 square feet with whatever revisions we can do in terms of architectural style.
Exactly. Mr.
Dave Veach seconds and votes no.
Wait, are you not going to support the project?
No, I support the project. I've been clear that I don't think the reduction of the size of the management building is something that I support.
I'm going to stop and go to council. How's that work?
So let's go through the discussion, and then let's see where we
because
end
I'm
up with the
thoroughly
number of
confused.
votes, and then we'll back into what a condition would look like.
Okay, so we're going to have a discussion on the management building. Is that right, council?
Well, you've now taken one vote, which is a no vote from Mr. Veach. I think let's go through what the rest of the crew thinks
okay.
about it.
Mr. Nixon?
No.
Paul?
Yes.
Ginny?
No.
No. And yes. So, Mr. Veach, do you want to reconsider that?
I will reconsider it a bit, but with the statement that I think that eliminating the common space was a big mistake. So in order to keep things clean, I will vote to support the reduction as you presented.
Okay, so that worked out. So we are, for that, 3-2. Okay, that's good to know. Now, next thing we should vote on is probably the irrigation. Can we have a quick discussion on that, Council, first, before we vote on the irrigation? Does that work?
100%.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay, good. So I'm going to say something first, which is unusual. The way I look at it is I want whatever it takes to have the trees that they plant flourish and to keep the irrigation, to keep the trees and all the foliage well. I don't want it to look like what happened over in Eastham. I don't want that. So if it needs to be a well that's used from time to time in order to establish and then maintain, so I need that, or I'll vote no. I would have voted no on the project if that was one of the things that put me over the edge. Just want you to know.
Singling me on.
No, I'm just letting you know that. That is one of the things, the reasons why I came out today to vote yes, because I really want it to look nice. I think,
You want it to look the way that it's been presented. As
Right.
closely as possible, as quickly as possible.
and things take time to grow, but still,
yeah.
I don't want it to be neglected. So I'm in favor of very, very precise language that's essentially bulletproof on this, that we have a nice-looking tree situation. I know there's a better word for that, but,
Okay, so do
Okay.
you want me to comment on it?
yes, please.
Well, so I'm a little torn in that I felt that the way Paul presented it, that's the way I was thinking. And I think it is important that they've tried to choose materials and plants and things that are going to survive and not need regular watering. Because I think that the installation of a well, on the one hand, is a good idea because that will help with the initial establishment of the plantings. And there could be, we could put a condition in that, as far as any future use of it after 3 years or something like that, or Jay may have some things that. The other side of that, though, is, it seems to me, that, as Paul pointed out, is that the town is trying to discourage the use of watering and irrigate, and we're using water for irrigation, town water, but as he said, private wells that go in the ground, and there we have one on the property I'm on, they all tap the same aquifer. So if you get enough private property owners going around trying to get around the town's position, and then as you said, the watering and all that, I don't know where we're headed with all this. So I can vote for a well, but primarily to help get the landscaping well established. I don't feel like I necessarily want a well that they can just keep.
And endless.
Using
I
endlessly.
just want to point out one thing, I feel very compelled to point out, that part of the town's problem with the use of water is they don't want people to use treated water, the drinking water. Does that make sense? They don't want you to use the treated water to water, and that is the big sticky wicket with irrigation. I'm pretty confident of that. And I talked to the appropriate person as to that, and he said, well, they're not going to be able to use the water there because we don't use treated water to irrigate. It's against town rules. And so that's kind of when this whole well thing spouted. So,
Pun intended.
yes. Paul, what do you think?
Well, despite the spouting, yes. I think that, first of all, as I said, I prefer not to use the well at all. I think we do need to establish the new plantings, and that we can do that as they were originally planning, which was to bring in water for a period of time, perhaps 2 to 3 years, to establish the new plantings. If the board feels that, no, they want the ability to continue to use well water in order to irrigate and support the landscaping, then I think we should make it consistent with the requirements that the town imposes with respect to the rest of the people who don't have wells, i.e., if there are restrictions that say you use it only on Tuesday or Thursday, be based on where you're located, then they're subject to those same restrictions, which I think right now is not true with respect to the well water that's being used. But overall, I would prefer not to use a well at all. And we've been told that that can be done, and it can be attractive with respect to the plantings that are going to be done there. So that would be my suggestion. If we need to compromise and have landscaping that uses a well, that use be restricted to what's consistent with the town's position as to those who can establish irrigation on existing town water. As I understand it right now, you can't put a new landscaping system in without a well. So really, the people that are subject to these restrictions right now are the ones that already have irrigation and are on town water. I think those same restrictions, if we're going to put in a well system, in this situation, those same restrictions should apply to this well.
Okay. Ginny and Dave, do you want to comment on this at all, please?
Yeah, I'm 100% in favor of a well. We're clear cutting that property practically, not exactly, but I think it's something like 13 trees on 3 acres are being saved. And so all of these circles are new trees. And I think it's critical that they are irrigated. Maybe the well doesn't need to run for 15 years or 10 years, but I think there's a substantial amount of taking these very important trees out of that 3 acres, and that we need to do everything we can to replenish it. Mark has put a really great plan together. I'd actually like to ask for more trees going, not just along Main Street, but down the center. Well, maybe not more trees, but the larger caliper 4.5-inch trees also going down the lane, the two lanes, to just create more green, more green and more nature and more trees, and to establish them and have them flourish. I think we need the water.
And I agree with that, and I know Penrose will do that for us. We see a lot of head shaking like this. So, Dave, do you want to say anything about that? No? You're good? Okay, so I think we could, council, does it sound like you could craft something that's going to really respect the vegetation? That was the word I was looking for before. The vegetation, and make the language pretty strict about if any of the newer trees don't make it, then they need to be replaced. This is my big thing, right, and the management building looking historical. And so it's about the streetscape. That's the least we can do here, is have a beautiful streetscape and have some trees that make it.
Yeah, I think I have a sense of what the board wants. Obviously, we want to preserve as many existing larger mature trees as possible. I'm going to require a final landscaping plan anyway, like a full, 100% design landscaping plan anyway. I have a sense as to where I would go in terms of guarantees of the plantings. I think I have enough to go on with respect to, especially with Paul's comments on where we would go with irrigation that would maybe be qualified by working with town officials and adhering to common sense restrictions on well usage for that. So I think I have enough that I could do some drafting. And then, of course, when we get back together, we're going to have an opportunity as a group to refine that in any way, in any direction that you want to.
Okay, and in the meantime, is it all right if Penrose sends us over a management building draft to look at administratively, or how are we going to deal with that one?
I have a good feel for how I would structure that. I don't want to take in additional evidence from Penrose because I want to preserve the process in case there's a collateral or third-party appeal. But just based upon the colloquy, mostly through emails on what Penrose would be willing to do before we close the hearing, I think that I can craft something. And again, Penrose can take a look at it too. And certainly the board's going to take a look at it. But I have a good feel for where the board wants to be on a redesign of that management building. And obviously it's not, I don't think it's a particularly difficult topic, and we're going to require that
good.
Penrose submit that final plan for at least administrative review, which is more of just like a thumbs up, thumbs down review rather than a full-blown hearing posture
Yeah.
following the issuance of the permit.
Yeah, so our last day that we need to vote on this is December 4th, and we do meet, of course, we meet every week, we meet every day. We meet next week as well. Is there anything else we should do with regard to this project today before we move on to meeting counts?
I think maybe I would like to maybe hear from Paul. Paul spoke, I think, pretty eloquently about some of the exterior design and some of the mechanicals. And I don't know, and Randy, you and I have talked a little bit, and I know the board has talked a little bit about those little exterior storage bins. I have a feel of what the board likes and doesn't like, but I'm not sure if there's anything worthy of discussion there. People have been generally satisfied with the general architecture of those buildings, but I don't know if there's anything particular about the mechanicals or those storage bins or anything else about the exterior that you want to nail down now. Paul had some good comments about that a few minutes ago.
Yeah, Paul?
My experience in going to the village at Nauset Green in Eastham indicated to me that, in part because of the situation of the buildings and so forth, but there were a number of exterior mechanicals used for the individual buildings, which are elevated, but they're elevated on metal structures, which frankly are not very good looking. And I thought in terms of having a condition which would say that the exterior mechanicals should be behind the buildings that are shown on the depictions that we're looking at. They're not always necessarily behind, but they do need to meet setback, and we should try to keep them out of sight. That was one suggestion that I made. The other is with respect to storage. I didn't really go into, but one of the other things that I noticed in the village of Nauset Green is that almost all of the bicycles are stored outside, because I don't think that there's enough room in the storage portion that's set aside for the individual units for them to put the bicycles inside. And that leads to, as was pointed out in one of the comments that we received, a tarp being placed over a bicycle, which is on a rack and is visible to everybody walking by or driving by. Perhaps we could have a little bit extended storage facility, a little bit bigger, that would allow the bicycles to be stored vertically as opposed to horizontally, and would then keep that off the outside and tarp storage and that issue.
That's helpful. And I too, just editorially, not that my opinion counts for anything here, that I had been, as someone who rides a bike pretty frequently, I had been thinking that maybe the bicycles would be the measure of some enhancements on that those exterior storage bins. So I think I can craft something along that, and I can certainly craft something in terms of rearranging the mechanicals so that they're even screened more appropriately.
I don't think we've actually seen a plan that shows the exterior mechanicals, because that was something they felt they were going to deal with later.
Yeah,
Well, that'll come with a post-permit final set of plans, I think.
okay, yep, good, good.
Randy,
Yes, please.
just one
Please, Dave.
thing
Yeah.
that I thought of when you were going through things at the beginning is, I know that Penrose came back to us and said that they could go along with assigning a parking space to each unit. I'm just questioning because I think maybe it was something I read for our next hearing or whatever that was a reminder to me. I saw some wording about that not assigning spaces provides maximum flexibility, maximum flex use for a parking area. So, and having lived and worked in downtown Chatham for many years, and recognizing that there's a place where parking on paper never works, but somehow always works, that rang a bell for me because once you start assigning spaces, you've changed the process, you changed the way things can work. Now, I've said other times, and I continue to say, they're professionals, and they know, and they should know, and know better than we. But I just am wondering, do we really want that as part of do we want that as a condition, or do we want them to say that's going to be it? We're going to assign a space, and I just don't know the wisdom of that because I haven't heard enough back and forth about it, honestly. So I don't know where we are in the process in terms of that, but just something I wanted to bring up.
Yeah. And I've recently learned that everything that we do here is not cast in stone. It could be changed.
With their needing to come back to us, probably.
I
or
don't
not.
know with something like that if they'd have to come back to us, but I'm flexible with this one.
Okay.
I think, if you don't have, I said at the beginning of these hearings that I have had some criminal cases where people get very particular about their spot that they say is their spot, and then they put like a chaise lounge or whatever in
Yeah.
there, and then there's been fights, and then there's been cases with that. So the idea of having an assigned spot somewhat appeals to me, because we don't need that. We're not, even if we had that in Chatham, we'd probably never read about it. But anyway, so I think that whoever's an expert on this should probably decide it, and that certainly is not me. But I'm flexible. Paul, Ginny, and anybody, your thoughts?
Well, I'm with Dave here a little bit. I do feel as if we probably don't know enough about the situation to know whether it makes sense or doesn't make sense. And therefore, I'm inclined to go with the expertise of the people who actually do this on a daily basis. At the same time, it's my natural inclination to always push back against people who know what they're doing, because then again, they maybe don't know what they're doing. But I think in this instance, we should leave it up to them.
Maybe between now and next time, if it's permissible, we could get some input at the Chatham Housing Authority and what works there, because that place runs like a very well-tuned instrument. And I think that some information from Tracy may be helpful here, because it is Chatham, and she knows what happens here with spaces. So I can't ask you now, but we'll find out maybe. Is that all right, Jay, if we call a friend between now and next time?
Yeah, provided that there's not deliberation in and
No,
amongst,
I'll do it. I will do it,
by and between, right?
and I will report back.
Yeah, so I'll put a placeholder in for parking. I think that everyone raises some good points here. There's thinking on parking has evolved a lot in terms of, we always used to reflexively say 2 per every unit of, that's passé thinking. So, but we do have to manage the parking spaces effectively. So I'll just kind of put a placeholder in it in my draft, and we'll go from there.
Okay, very good. Anything else we should accomplish today before we take a quick break and come back on Meeting House?
I'll go through, I know we received some notes from Ed. Ginny did an amazing amount of work as well in terms of thinking about, how this shapes up. So I'll make sure I look at everything
That would be great.
that
yes.
has been out there, because undoubtedly there's some substantive rather than boilerplate provisions that we're not thinking of right now. It might be a little bit in the margins, but everything's important. So I'll make sure I go through that. And obviously, Randy, you and I talk pretty frequently, so we'll probably get our heads together on some little things. But depending upon when we meet next, I should have a pretty, close to final decision ready for you all to work on. And my preference is that we sit and we just kind of go through it. We don't have to go over every single piece of boilerplate. But it's helpful to walk the board through the entirety of it, because undoubtedly a board member or two is going to come up with something like, geez, I forgot, let's add this to it as well.
Yeah, we can maybe do that next week. Well, it's going to be up to Sarah. And that one other question I have, so Penrose hasn't had any kind of visible mental fit here today, so I'm kind of hoping that, they haven't seemed to, show any kind of distress on any of the conditions, and so I'm just sort of reading the room here. But they must have to have the ability to concede these once we come up with a document, correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's up to you. That's up to the board. My general preference is not, well, first of all, if I was Penrose, I'd be pretty pleased with the direction of this voting so far, even though it's not binding. Most of the hard work was done already, where they've made some revisions that got them to this point. So the rest of it, I think, should be pretty acceptable. My preference is that I don't share my draft with them until the whole board gets to sit down with it. But at some point, I think it is important to let them know. And obviously, Attorney Singer can contact me directly if he has anything in mind. He's already emailed me once to ask as to whether or not we want him to do the drafting. I said, I'm okay doing the drafting. I've drafted a whole bunch of 40Bs over the last 30 years. So I think we're in pretty good shape there. But I think there'll be an opportunity to get some of their input on things. And obviously, Attorney Singer can contact me if he has anything that he needs to add.
Okay, Mr. Veach had one more
Yeah,
thing.
just correct me if I've missed something, but I'm just looking at my notes up here, and I didn't see, I actually didn't get a copy of Jenny's thing. So
No,
if I
well,
could
we
get a
couldn't
copy
really
of
do that. yeah.
So the other thing that I think was not necessarily answered was the question of color of the buildings. And so we haven't discussed that any further, and I don't know where we are with that. So that might be another point to discuss. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we should just quickly go over the idea of whether we're going to ask for cedar shingles, or we're not going to ask for gray cedar shingles, or where are we with that? I mean,
Well, I don't think that there's the material, the shingles or not, and then there's color as well, which we kind of went around with them. And as I recall, the last I said was, hey, I have no problem with anything they presented. I'd let them decide. But I don't know. I don't think we have had any resolution of any of that.
Sarah might know what we have
Yeah.
had with that, because I think we moved on from there at one point.
Well, I think we keep moving on from things, and sometimes we don't all know that somehow. I mean,
No,
I'm
oh,
just.
yeah.
I'm not unhappy. I'm just saying, it's just a note I looked at.
No, I just meant we moved on from it. We talked about something else, because I thought we might have come to some agreement on that. Let's see if we did.
I believe, well, there was quite a bit of discussion on it, and 1 or 2 meetings ago. And I'm just pulling up what we had, and seeing if this is what the board wants to go with, where they gave us sort of different palettes. My recollection is that certain members at subsequent meetings had said, no, maybe we should have it be all white, so that way it doesn't look too much. So I don't know that there was any real resolution as to colors or just,
That's my understanding of where we are. Those are the things I
And you're
remember.
fine with that? If it was white?
I'd be fine with white, and when I revisit that, the things, the only thing that I mean, in looking at it, is I find that they've shown a possible gray color that to me looks grayer than I would like to see. But the white and the off-white, fine with me.
I think white is more Cape Cod, that, based on what I know, either that or gray, you know.
That's, I mean, that's where in my mind, white is frequently used. I think that it may be there also that they're proposing, the proposal is on the backsides and sides of the buildings, some of the buildings, is using they're like a cement board
Clapboard?
type shingle, not clapboard, but shingle. Is that true? I'm not sure.
Ginny might be able to shed some light on this. This is her expertise.
Yeah, so I remember these conversations, and when I think we landed on white, it was just the Greek Revival clapboard portion of the buildings, not the entire 4 sides. 2 of the buildings have the white clapboard across, and I think the C building, only a portion, the gable end portion is white, and then the rest of the front is cedar. I know Paul's here, and he can comment on that too, but, so I think the question of white were people thinking that it was the entire 4 sides or just the clapboard? I was thinking it was just the horizontal clapboard. And the cedar board, the fiber cedar board, which is a alternative synthetic shingle look,
Yeah,
was on the side, both sides and the back of buildings A and B.
yeah.
And C, except for the front, is a combo of the fiberboard and the clapboard.
Okay, so I guess what I kind of did not see here in those, and in your, I saw a few, where they actually presented the entire building as being sort of gray clapboards and all that. So I'm along with you in terms of the white, especially if it's a clapboard. If it's a white or a slightly off-white, I don't have a problem with that. The only thing I'm trying to get at is if we're using the shingle board, let's call it that, shingle board around on the other sides, then I think white can also apply. However, I wouldn't mind looking at a more faded gray
I agree.
on those 3 sides.
So they look like gray cedar shingles?
More,
naturally
like,
fading?
more look like.
More
gray.
look like,
I mean,
yeah.
what I see, honestly, these days, I'm looking around everywhere I go, and I don't go up to the building to look at the type of thing. What I see is a lot of shingled sidewalls that are pre-stained. I see a lot of that. I see a lot of shingled sidewalls that are pre-stained a gray color. I haven't, well, I don't want to get too far into it, but I think that's how I feel about the color.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dave. I think what you're saying, at one point, we had proposed that Penrose do the traditional real white cedar shingling on the sides that are called fiber cement shingle panels. And it came back at the next hearing that was cost prohibitive.
Right.
And maybe not practical?
And not practical, or they didn't want to do it. So
there's that.
I think at that point, we didn't push back and make it a condition.
Right.
That's
Because
right.
we understood that. However, I think, at least in my mind, we still wanted the original, just the Greek Revival, what they call the white front lap siding. It's just in the front of buildings A and B, and just a portion of the front of C. And that the shingles, I agree, or the simulated shingle look
Yeah,
would be a grayer, more traditional looking, even though it's synthetic, it would look like the cedar shingles that you see faded in town.
If nobody
Predominantly.
objects, why don't we just ask council to incorporate that? Unless anybody else wants to.
no, it works for me.
Because I think that's how I remembered it, too, that we walked away from it with some kind of resolution. Yeah, so Jay, you can always
So-
wind this back.
So are we looking for white on the
Yes.
fronts and cedar shake on the sides?
Well, it,
Or?
Sort of,
Or did I miss something?
it's all in my summary that you have,
Yeah,
so,
you have it in that summary.
Okay,
have it.
Yeah.
all right.
So just to be
Ginny,
spec-
if it,
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
The white, what's referred to in the diagram is painted, I think it stands for painted, it's PTND. Painted white front lap siding is on the front of building A and B, with sides and the rear being the fiber cement shingle panel. Now, the C building has a front gable portion only that is the white lap siding. And then there's sort of a secondary or a recessed portion of Building C that is, at least it appears in the rendering to be the fiber cement shingle. Okay, so the front of C is a combination. I think the clearest way to say it is all of the horizontal lap siding is white on every building. And the cedar shingles, I think to Dave's point, is making sure that those, if we have an option of having them not be white or not even be a light gray, but sort of a more medium resembling traditional cedar, faded, aged white cedar.
I believe they're going to agree to that,
Okay.
Jay, so why don't we put that to pen, too?
sure.
Okay? Okay, is everybody happy for today? I think we've, again, if you think about what came in originally, and you think about how it's going to look now, I hope you agree with me, at least, that it wasn't worth jeopardizing, and that we have a better project for the town than we would have had if we had, tanked it today. And then they came back and put that original project, and it would be unfortunate for many people if that had happened. So I hope that people are somewhat satisfied. All right, so at this point, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back and talk about Meeting House. Thank you. Okay, we are back, and first thing we're going to do is ask our attorney about dates for the next hearing for Main Street. Sarah, can you articulate that?
Attorney Tallerman, is it possible to have a decision to the board so that way we could have this on our November 20th meeting? In the alternative, when do you reasonably expect that we could, so that way I could schedule for either, well, we have December 4th, but I would think that we would want to have one more meeting to sort of
Can we do it on?
fly through it. December 4th, we have 9 items on our agenda.
Hold on, let's just see what he...
I think that it is going to be a stretch for me to get it done on the 20th. I could try and put some other things aside and get to it. I have the Yarmouth Town meeting and some other stuff, so Monday's a wash. I'm in Chatham all day on Tuesday, but I may have some time to do some drafting in between things because I have a bunch of meetings for you all. Wednesday is an okay drafting day for me, so why don't we tentatively say the 20th? It's going to be a bit of a lift just because it's going to be a significant amount of drafting for me and for you, Sarah. But let's try for the 20th.
We can,
Is what I would say.
so I'd say I'll put it on the agenda for the 20th. If we can't pull it all together and get it to the board before then, the 24th and 25th of the following week, it doesn't appear, based on the calendar, that there are any meetings scheduled during the day. That's a Monday and a Tuesday. So we could always theoretically, if the board was available, book some time during the day to meet and do that as well.
Yeah, potentially the 24th. The 25th probably wouldn't work for me. So let's try for the 20th so we can stick with the board schedule and not have to inconvenience the board any more than we have to. And let's see what I can get done. Again, I'm going to be using templates that I have existing. I just have to make it all work with the stuff we just talked about and then the facts and procedural history that we have here. So let's give it a try.
Okay. So November 20th, the continued deliberations for Main Street Comprehensive Permit will be placed on our regular business agenda.
Do we need a motion? No. Okay, so
No.
November 20th for Penrose Main Street. Okay. So the die has been cast for that, so we know what's going to happen. We just have to see how it's going to happen. All right, so now we're going to go to Meeting House. Sarah?
Application number 25-077, Penrose LLC, 15 Milk Street, 16th floor, Boston, Mass. 02109. The property is owned by the Town of Chatham, located at 0 Meeting House Road, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 4E, Block 11A, Lot AB. The applicants are requesting the grant of a comprehensive permit under Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, Sections 20 through 23, and 760 CMR 56, for the construction of a 42 dwelling units in 8 structures. The applicants are requesting the grant of various waivers from regulations promulgated by the Chatham zoning bylaw and other local regulations. The property contains 3.57 acres in the R60 zoning district. This was continued from August 14th, September 4th, and October 16th, 2025.
Welcome back, Mr. Singer, Attorney Singer.
Good afternoon. Excuse me. Thank you. Let me get this. Okay, here we go. Okay. Thank you. For the record, Andrew Singer, attorney on behalf of the applicant. The applicant is, we're all here today. Have just 2 brief presentations this afternoon. On November 6th, we provided a supplemental submission to you with plans, and I'm just going to show them briefly, and then Joe Henderson from Horsley Witten will discuss, give you an update on the peer review. There's been further peer review with Ty and Bond. As far as the site plan itself, and we'll, I'm sure, have discussion about this later, but just to go over it quickly with you, as you can see up on the plan, the dumpster, as discussed and as requested, has been relocated from the northeast side of the parking area to the center part of the property, and you can see it there in that island in the middle. It will accommodate the dumpster area is there within an enclosure. It did result in the loss of one space, but Mr. Henderson will discuss, we still meet the ratios that Penrose believes work. So mention that. And also, if you look at the extreme southwest corner, a bollard gate has been proposed and added. That was discussed, if you remember, from the, I think, the Bikeways Committee had asked about that. So one has been put in there, and then we can have more discussion. I just wanted to, quickly outline it to you. And finally, just on the last plan here, and we can go back to him, Mark has also added additional plantings along the northern property line, and in the areas of the reforestation, select larger trees have been added to diminish the effect of site clearing. So these are the revised plans that we have submitted, for further discussion today. We know we're just going to have, we'll be meeting today and then ultimately being continued. I'm going to turn it over to Joe, and then, we're here. I know there'll be public comment, and we're here for any questions or how we can discuss it. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Joe.
Hi, good afternoon. Joe Henderson, Horsley Witten Group. And I just, as Andrew said, I just wanted to give an update on our peer reviews. We've had a civil peer review done and a traffic. There was one remaining comment from the civil peer review related to the stormwater design. We met with Ty and Bond last week, and we came to an agreement to make a modification to our bioplanter 1, and that satisfied their question there. That was, I think, reflected in the letter they just recently sent. There was also a traffic peer review letter that had comments related to the site, and we did make those changes on the plans that were submitted. One was related to space for backing up of vehicles, and that was addressed with the dumpster location move. We also had some ADA parking spaces that we adjusted the symbols basic, and then the trash pickup was related to how the vehicles were going to get to the trash enclosures. So the idea is that they would come in and have head-in pickup. They'd be able to pull into the trash enclosure and back out and circulate back out of the site. And lastly, there was a question related to the parking ratio. So we have a parking ratio of 1.42. That's, the peer reviewer questioned that and was looking for something a little higher. And we, respectfully think that our ratio is adequate. Penrose has provided some data that shows that they can, accommodate this ratio. So that's all in the peer review response. We've submitted that to Ty and Bond, obviously, for comment, and we'll, work with them on that as needed. And there was a letter of, I think, October 22nd with some additional traffic comments, and we have forwarded that along to Vanessa Associates, who are the traffic engineers, and we will have them look and respond to those comments. So that's where we stand on peer review. I think at this point, we'll just take any questions.
Okay, we'll come back to that. I think basically what we do now is I will summarize the letters, unless Penrose has anything else on this today. Oh, do you? No, okay. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, just for anyone that wasn't here, we already have a rule on letters, and they are to be no longer than 1 page, 11 font. I see that somebody gave me 1 page and the font is about a 1. So I'm going to summarize, certainly that one, if I can even read it. And I'm going to essentially summarize, I'm going to take the opportunity to summarize a lot of times going forward, because otherwise we spend a lot of time, we've spent extra time on letters that we really didn't have to based on our rules, and also they're all posted. in the, online. Okay, so the first one is from Conservation Commission from October 17th, and this project does not have to be conditioned to meet the performance standards because it is not in the conservation jurisdiction. Next, we have a note from Douglas Boning, and he's writing to express his opposition, and this was received today, November 13th, it looks like. He opposed to the project, and the projects are too dense for the available acreage, inadequate for children to play safely, not enough parking spaces. They are both near busy roads and will create traffic hazards. The Meeting House project is planned for a terrain challenge plot in less than 3 buildable acres with 42 units. There are more than 14 apartments per acre. I compare this density to Nauset Green in Eastham, constructed on 11.2 acres with 65 apartments or 5.8 units per acre. That earlier Penrose project lacks any redeeming architectural style and has the charm of a warehouse district. The Penrose representative at South Chatham Village Association meeting in 2024 suggested that the company take over a portion of the Twinefield Conservation Land as a play area for children. He also could not identify Main Street on the aerial photograph of the development site. I was not impressed. I've lived in Chatham for over 20 years, and I want the town to be safe for children. This is a 2-page, and the font is probably not exactly what it needs to be, so I am going to summarize it. And this was received on November 13th, 2025, from Laurie Nolan McCann, a Chatham resident since 1965. This was addressed to pretty much all of our departments here in town, and especially to me and to Joe Goldsmith and the fire, police. Okay. This is my third letter regarding Penrose Management Company applying in Chatham to develop a total quantity of 90 transient rental apartments. The proposed project being heard here for Meeting House has 42 apartments, 8 buildings, 6 buildings of which will be 3 stories high, towering structures which are well above the height restriction. The development will be erected on only 3.571 acres of land. Much of it is upland and has a significant grade of X and will result in the buildings looming over the quaint village of South Chatham. Some of this land is unsuitable to build on. 42 units on that amount of land is too dangerous. It's unsafe. Please refer to my letter October 15th, 2025 and revisit those points. The Select Board has failed the residents of Chatham. Their invitation to developers like Penrose to develop this land for affordable housing has compromised their vision statement and pledge. They pledged to this town preservation of our pristine environment. This project will be devastating, demolishing this once sweet South Chatham neighborhood. The same holds true for Penrose, deeply dense on the Buckley property. Workforce housing is the suggested audience, but the reality is our local community professionals, education, police, fire, to name a few, won't qualify for the housing. Let's see. Now I'm on the second page, so I'm going to continue to summarize. It's imperative that Chatham citizens are aware and that our Chatham government agencies understand that a member of the Chatham Affordable Housing Trust Board is not in favor of these developments. She read aloud her poignant letter on October 15th. She's intelligent, understands what thoughtful affordable housing can and should be. The residents of Chatham deserve a safe environment. The idea of all towns in Mass having 10% affordable is absurd. To slam this project in for the sake of the goal is irresponsible. I've heard the heartfelt stories of a Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals member that is also, and also that of one of 2 members of the Affordable Trust. They have cited their own personal life struggles to secure and maintain housing, and their experience seems to cause them to support the project. using their personal life struggles to favor dense, unsafe projects is wrong. I also object to local business persons rallying in support to build these dense, unsafe projects. I have not seen a Penrose lease or rules and regulations for these proposed apartment complexes. If you greenlight this project, it may well be the demise and destruction of Chatham. New England architecture won't be installed here. And again, this letter is on the website if you want to read every single word. Right? Yeah. Okay.
Not, letters.
It will
are-
be.
Yeah, it will be.
Yes, because we just got it. Okay. Now, this one is from the Executive Director of the Chatham Housing Authority. And her name is not signed, but I think it's, Tracy Cannon. Okay. Now that the public comment portion of the Main Street Housing Buckley property deliberation is closed, I feel it's very important for me to speak of a few of the issues that were raised before and will no doubt be raised again as we begin to look more closely at Meeting House. The issues I feel I can speak to with confidence are specifically parking, public transportation, trash, and road safety. We face all of these issues at the Housing Authority, as have all low-income and affordable housing developments. The single truth is that in these situations is that if you have the right management company, none of these things are insurmountable. They are certainly not worth losing a desperately needed opportunity like this. Parking. There's no way to know in advance how many parking spaces will be needed. We do not have as many parking spaces as we have tenants at the Housing Authority, and we've managed to find solutions as the need arises. It's always better to borrow from a little bit of green space later if it is needed than to pave over an area prematurely. Public transit. We are at the Housing Authority have a fantastic relationship with the Cape Cod Regional Transit bus system. Years ago, when Lake Street Terrace was built, it became clear that our neighborhood having a bus stop nearby was going to be very important. The CCRT actually made the Housing Authority an official stop on their route from Hyannis to Orleans. The bus pulls very slowly through our horseshoe driveway, stopping at both ends. Again, I do not mean to say that this is what we should do here, only that CCRT is very willing and able to work with the community to find solutions to serve the people in the most efficient and safe way possible. Trash and dumpster. Again, very simply, ways to change if the first way isn't working. It has been trial and error for us. We have swapped out dumpsters for roll-off barrels in some places, vice versa in others. You have to pick a cooperative trash service who's willing to work with you. Road safety. We don't have an insignificant number of kids that travel on foot down Kroll Road to and from the middle school, and they have remained safe. We have a large number of seniors as well that walk downtown, Village Market, banks, post office, and have remained safe as well. As long as there are sidewalks available to current crosswalks at nearby rotaries, people, by and large, will utilize them. There are never any guarantees, but it's always the case that's always the case no matter where you live. Certainly no reason to build not to build very badly needed housing. In closing, I'd like to say, most importantly, a development must have a good management company running it. They need to be willing to listen to the tenants, the neighbors, the residents of Chatham in general, and the town officials when there are concerns and address them as they arise. I have tried diligently to do everything in my power to do this with the Housing Authority, and I am very proud of our relationship with the town of Chatham. Again, I'm always available to answer questions and share my experiences with anyone. Tracy. Short note from Debbie Swenson from November 13th, 2025, writing to recommend the ZBA votes to disapprove the Meeting House Affordable Housing Development. The proposed structure have no cellars, basements needed something to do with moisture, mold, mildew in this area, insufficient parking, no outside recreational space, no water for plantings, local service employees and seniors won't qualify, and rental prices are too high for those who do. There are no requirements or limits on the number of occupants or family units, and no enforcement. A poor proposal in every way, Debbie Swenson. Lou Heeb of South Chatham writes on also November 13th, 2025, the more I learn about the Penrose projects, the more disturbing they are. By an undemocratic process, the citizens of South Chatham will suffer egregious deleterious harm to our community. The project is dangerous, especially for children. The parking and traffic congestion will be a mess. Warehousing of lower-income folks in crowded conditions has historically not worked out well for those involved. The amount of environmental damage planned is painful and not consistent with our town's stated values. The project is glaringly incongruous with our community's character. Please do whatever you can to maintain Chatham's zoning standards, especially font. And it says, let's see, I'm coming in late on this issue and have spent hours watching the trust meetings and following the Buckley meetings and Meeting House Road projects that were contracted to Penrose despite the public and several board members being in favor of nonprofit choice with home ownership. And this is from Ann Timpson, and I don't see her address yet, but I'll see if I come to it. Most of us would like to see a postponement of the vote on Main Street project and a list of conditions for both projects. Everyone appreciates the ZBA has come a long way in presenting to Penrose both alterations and conditions for Main Street. We hope the ZBA will continue to negotiate for their reasonable terms rather than vote on Thursday. I'm trying to get to Meeting House. With regard to Meeting House, there are some concerns. She lists 18 in the smallest font I've ever seen. Penrose has not been transparent. There's no extra parking. There is no enforcement of occupancy. No requirements as to one family unit. Poor security. No restrictions on water. Problem with clear cutting the property. No permanent well for irrigation. Planted saplings, no security person available at night, no basements. Local preference for our townspeople is an issue. It only lasts for 3 months. Rentals start at $2,000 a month, and then she goes on to name how that all works. If you're a senior wanting to downsize space, your equity is primarily in your home, you won't be eligible. And again, there's 18 of these, and if you want to look at the town's website sometime, it might already be on there. No, that was received November 11th, but try Monday or Tuesday. Farrell Smith O'Connell, it's a law firm, and they are in Chatham. I think I messed this up last time in terms of the address. I will not do that again. David J. Farrell, Jr., and he is right on Main Street in Chatham. I write to supplement my September 3rd, 2025 letter and to reiterate my support for affordable housing in Chatham. However, Penrose, based in Philadelphia, will not be a good neighbor and is not up to the job here. At a recent ZBA meeting on Buckley property, Penfield attorney Marion Singer Rose announced that wooden shingles would be too expensive and a fire hazard. This is a slap in the face of virtually every building owner in Chatham and our architectural aesthetic. The Sally's Way affordable housing site in Truro, built by On Cape Community Housing Resources, nicely features white cedar shingle siding. He goes on to show a bunch of photos, and again, this will be on the town's website if it's not already. And one of the photos in particular, he notes as alarming because it's another project, he says, of Penrose in Eastham where there's some damage 5 years after construction. There's a couple of photos like that. Okay, so there's that. Next we have David and Linda McElroy. and that was received November 10th, 2025. With the many affordable housing units being built in Chatham and adjacent towns and the high density of this construction on Main Street and Meeting House, is there a penalty that Penrose will be required to pay the town of Chatham if their rentals do not meet 70% local rental agreement? Will units just remain vacant, or will the non-locals be allowed to rent? We would appreciate review of the level of property taxes Penrose will pay. What will be the impact on the developments on police force staffing? Will additional police positions be needed? How many school-aged children are expected from the proposed number of units? We'd also appreciate a review of whether water and sewage costs will be paid by Penrose or covered by the town of Chatham. A traffic study has apparently been done in each location, but data has not been distributed. It's hard to imagine the traffic from these units will not create backups, accidents, and new traffic choke points on Main Street and the intersection of Main and Route 137. Parking has been limited to 1.4 spaces with no mention of guest parking for caregivers. This may result in double parking or parking along Meeting House Road on 137. Recognizing that there will be a path leading to the Meeting House Road development on the rail trail, is unrealistic to assume that this will eliminate a significant number of residents and their visitors from walking along Meeting House Road, as there's no sidewalk between the rail trail and 28, and also many will undoubtedly choose to walk down the driveway. Let's see, there's no ADA certification on Meeting House from the Penrose property to 28, where there is bus service. Not to do so would be extraordinarily irresponsible. Constructing a sidewalk should be required for this development. Okay. Elaine Gibbs has a 2-page letter that I will just summarize. She goes over many topics. Topography. By Penrose's own admission, Meeting House is challenged. They've stated repeatedly that they would never have bid on it if it had not been combined with Main Street to make it financially attractive for them. 65% of the units are 2- and 3-bedroom, resulting in potential dozens of children living there. This entire project is too dangerous for children and families. And this, by the way, was received today as well. Boundaries, the property entrances and boundaries should be staked so the public can see how much they will have to be clear-cut. And the location and depths of the ravines. Entrance, the proposed wooden guardrail entrance is not only unsightly, George Ryder Road at Ocean State, but dangerous for children, as it's a 245-foot-long structure over a 13-foot ravine on either side. And she goes on to express her concern for safety and children. Location and parking, she thinks occupants at Meeting House are trapped. There is no bank, pharmacy, et cetera, and there's no alternative place to park if parking spaces are full when they get there. Public transportation should not be their only option. Density. Penrose actually encouraged children to play in the ravines with photos in their RFPs. The potential for accidents cannot be underestimated. Ravines with potential hazards should not be Penrose's alternative to open space. Storage. With no basement, there's insufficient storage for families, for seasonal equipment, etc. Liability. Penrose and the town of Chatham. Knowledge of a potential hazard and fail to act reasonably can be considered negligence and a reckless disregard for health and safety. Safety issues should be remedied during the public hearing process. Penrose has been made aware of the potential hazards. And then she gives a list on the second page of this of 13 requirements that she thinks need to be done to proceed. Again, you can look on the website and see what she suggests, and we will all read it. That looks like that concludes our correspondences.
Good job.
Okay. Folks in the audience, who would like to go first? Nope, so we just move on to the next item, or, no? Welcome.
Thank you. Name is Joe Meeks, South Chatham, 229 Pleasant Street. And this is the second meeting I've been at. I was at the last, so I'm getting an education too. And I guess the thing that frustrates me is I just look at the density of the buildings on this site. They have buildings backing up to other buildings, trying to shoehorn stuff into this location, which they know is not a great one to build in to begin with. So what I'm frustrated with is just the blatant lack of any regard for the character of the town and the neighbors that might abut these properties. And I hear the back and forth, and I understand there's a real limit to what the board can do with 40B projects. But it's very clear to me that this is not a partnership in any sense of the word. It's very much a predator preying on the town, taking advantage of whatever levers they can to get what they need. So I just ask the board to do everything they can to listen to the residents' concerns, do what they can to mitigate the project. We're all in favor of affordable housing and workforce housing. There's no issue there. But unfortunately, I don't live next to these things, but there are other people that are town people that are part of my community that do. And I'm just trying to be sensitive to them and their requirements as well. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gloria Hicks, welcome.
Thank you. Gloria Hicks, Meeting House Road. I'm an abutter to this project. And I'm for affordable housing going in this site, despite the fact that it's going to impact my life immeasurably. And I sort of have bullets, because I know I have 3 minutes, and we've all been here a long time. But one thing before I forget is I'd like to know from Penrose, when you do get to speak about the traffic studies, I'd like to know exactly what was said for the results, for you to make the revisions, for the revisions that you made, because I don't have that information. 3.75 acres was purchased. Only 2.25 acres is buildable. So everybody does the math differently, but in my math world, that's 17 units per acre. So you're going to hear about the density again with this project, the density and the height. This project will be hanging over 1,000 square foot, one level homes. So you're not fitting into a neighborhood or becoming a part of the neighborhood that's already there. You are creating a neighborhood. There are no sidewalks on the plans. There are no sidewalks planned. I know it's a town road, so I don't know what is going to happen with that. There are bus stops for children. There's going to be a lot of people living there, a lot of kids going to school. It's a dangerous road to begin with. I went to the Traffic Safety Committee to ask for speed limit signs, children's signs, and the digital readouts for people. There aren't any on 137, which is amazing. It's going to force me to walk out onto 137 to get to the bike trail, which I currently don't have to do. So a sidewalk would be imperative, not only for the development, but for those of us that are already living there. And in terms of the conservation land behind us, I don't hear a lot about that. We have very little conservation land. That land is going to be completely cleared. And that conservation land needs to be protected. We don't have any of it in South Chatham at all. And we're losing a lot of foliage with this project going in. And in terms of the water, you're going to have the same conversation that you just had about Main Street. The most absurd thing that I heard today was that the wells would be used temporarily until trees get established. I lost 3 trees 3 years ago. These were 8-year-old arborvitaes because you were looking at the irrigation system for 95 Meeting House Road. And then I drive by people's with lawns, True Green trucks all over, and we're creating the problems that we're trying to fix. Water is water. We've had this conversation. it all comes from the same place. So one of the things that I'll bring up to the select board is that when there's a water restriction, it needs to affect everybody. Nobody should be privileged. Water is not a luxury item, and it's becoming one. So you're going to have, I'm sure you'll have the same conversations about this project that we just had about Main Street. And I think that's all I have for now. I just need you to know that I've been at every single trust meeting and every single select board meeting since last year when all this started. The few that I have missed, I've watched. So I have kept up with every single thing, every step of the way, and people are actually sick of listening to me. I've been talking about things ad nauseum. I also have been working with Penrose about access for my own driveway.
Yep.
The
I hate to
plans-
break it to you, but you're 3 minutes away.
Okay, all right. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you. Carol Gordon from South Chatham. Allow me to share with you some concerns from some emails I've received regarding Meeting House Road. Here are just some of the concerns. Each rental unit should have its own water meter, assuming each tenant pays their own water bill. Each unit should be separately metered for sewer usage. Is there a pet policy? And this is something I don't think we've discussed at all, even with Main Street. And is there a pet fee with the policy? What happens with pets? If this plan goes through, a copy of the lease should be published, made public. Once again, cedar shingles on the homes to look like the homes are part of a Chatham community. Lack of working with the community as far as with Penrose. Everyone agrees that we need affordable housing. People just want it done right. Why is Penrose looking for funding from other Chatham organizations? These are just emails I've received. Regarding the affordable housing meeting, November 10th, an email was concerned that if the trust does not represent the taxpayers of Chatham, they should not be holding their positions. The lot is also not suitable for this development at this time. Once again, we turn to the zoning board to make the decisions that are best for Chatham. Thank you.
And thank you. Welcome, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
We can.
I've already sent you an email, but this is very sweet and short. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the ZBA. Thank you for your ongoing efforts to research and present realistic conditions for the two Penrose projects in Chatham. I have sent an email and since then have gone to the Community Housing Partnership meeting on November 10th. Several facts and comments stand out from that meeting. Number one, the Affordable Housing Trust now has over $6 million of our taxpayer-funded revenue. Thus, no need for another funding this year from CPA, as they have 11 other requests, and apparently Penrose has also requested $1 million from our CPA. Number two, a member of the Housing Board stated, and I quote, "We are not supposed to be advocating for the abutters. It is my understanding that committee members in this town are supposed to represent the public's interests." Number three, again at the meeting, a member suggested that seniors, in most cases, did not need parking spaces as they could not drive. It just does not seem equitable to be paying $2,000 or $3,000 a month for an apartment with no parking included by right. Number four, it was just announced that Chatham will be receiving over $500,000 for infrastructure improvements related to the Main Street Penrose development, including underground utilities and electrical connections, while present taxpayers and residents do without such modernizations. When power outages occur so frequently, only the renters at Main will be lucky enough to be protected. Number five, unrelated to the November 10 meeting, I hope there is a way for this board to continue to research further into the labyrinth of borrowing avenues available to Penrose, including loans from TD Bank through a syndicator, Redstone Equity Partners. Is funding commingled for different projects in different locations? This is worth looking into, and I thank you very much for listening, and for so much service for our town. Thank you.
And thank you. Miss, could you just go back and just tell us your name? I forgot to ask you. Yeah, right here. This is perfect. Thank
Ann
you.
Timpson.
That's okay.
Ann Timpson, Chatham.
Thank you. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. David Farrell at 2355 Main Street, and thanks for your work. I just wanted to reference the summary that's in your package on this agenda from Penrose, where they say their goal is to provide affordable housing that is a source of pride for the residents and the town, and I don't think they can do that. It was earlier suggested that drawings and plans are all well and good, but let's look at the reality. I have some photos I'd like to show. Are you going to be running it, sir?
Yeah.
Now, it was said that Penrose had categorically denied any consideration of wood shingles in this town where wooden shingles are very much part of our character. I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. Now, this is affordable housing in Truro, on Sally's Way. Provincetown also has shingled affordable housing. I don't know why it can't be done here, except that the reasoning was it's too expensive and a fire hazard. The rest of us deal with it. The next slide is an example that Penrose touts as a good representation of the kind of work they do. The village at Nauset Green aims to evoke the local Cape Cod style.
You have to stay near the mic, and I caution you, you have
Again,
a little over a minute left.
Next slide. Seriously? That's, yeah, that one. That is not Cape Cod style. That, unless you're looking at Otis military bases, barracks. Next slide. We have abomination, hodgepodge of gabled angles and composite shingles. If we can do a close-up of the southeast dormer, you see the missing, and this is important, look at the missing trim around the windows. Look at the cracks and the crooked courses. This is either or lousy construction and poor maintenance. And this is 5 years after it was built. And they're going to give that kind of attention to Meeting House Road, because I know it's too late to talk about Main Street, but that is going to be something that nobody that's resident there is going to take pride in, and neither is the town. And we deserve better. It's a beautiful town, and old residents and new residents ought to be able to take pride in what they have.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Tracy.
Hi, I'm going to be real quick, I promise. Tracy Cannon, South Chatham resident, Executive Director of the Housing Authority, and Vice Chair of the Housing Partnership. So I just want to say one quick thing on each thing. I'm sorry, I wanted to direct my comment to Ms. Timpson from the Housing Partnership. I think either I didn't make myself clear, I apologize, but I did not say, or I did not mean to say that elderly people don't drive. What I said was that we originally,
Okay.
we have 40.
You have to speak to the board.
We have 40 units at the Housing Authority, and when they originally built them 52 years ago, they only put in 24 parking spaces, because back then, a lot of elderly people didn't drive, but most of my tenants drive now. So I'm sorry, I apologize if that was misunderstood.
That's okay. We agree. Go ahead.
I also want to say, as a South Chatham resident, just that I am 100% on board with this project. I live right around the corner, and I frankly, the character of my neighborhood, I think, would be wildly enhanced by having a bunch of kids around and families and I can't think of anything I'd rather see in my neighborhood. But finally, as the Director of the Housing Authority, I want to reiterate what you said, Randy, that I'm available all the time. I would love to talk if you have, Quinn Colbert next door at Lake Street and I, we've seen a lot of the issues. We see them all the time, some of the things that are ongoing. And I think that if you have a really good relationship with who it is that's running these projects, a lot of the concerns that people have would be assuaged. You wouldn't, if you can talk about it, if you can address these things, and if you have a good working relationship with the town, with the residents, with everybody, a lot of stuff that people are worried about, they get solved. But you have to have that good relationship with your management company, and you have to have good people in place. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Brian Phillips, 489 Orleans Road, Chatham, for the record.
For the record, 374.
Oh, sorry.
Road,
Yeah.
Brian Phillips. I don't have much for you today. I guess one thing I'd like to bring up is that when you talk about affordable housing, people always bring up the fact that, it brings a lot of crime in. A lot of crime, maybe drug dealing or something. But what I've come to realize over the process of these hearings is it's not the tenants who are the criminals. If you look at Penrose and some of their criminal activity, the way they've procured a lot of their projects, they're the criminals.
We're not here to indict anyone.
All right.
Okay? If you know what
Understood.
I just want to point out, and this is a great time for me to do it, and I can do it as chair. I think the most helpful thing people can do is tell us how to make this project as good as possible, and if you think that there's no hope for it, then just say that too. But those are the things that are extremely helpful. Go ahead.
Oh, well, that's a curveball. So I guess the last thing, because I saw the density kind of approved, and I guess all I'm going to have to fall back on is an I told you so on, the density and how it's going to affect our infrastructure and how it's going to cost Chatham taxpayers a lot of money to fix that stuff with our drinking water and our roads and who knows what else. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am. Oh, wait a minute. Did you already go? You can't, no. You need to sit down. We cannot do that.
Everybody should
Ma'am,
watch.
I'm asking you again, quite respectfully, to sit down.
I'm not able to defend myself.
You are not able
It's
to
a
defend
mistake.
yourself. I apologize. Thank you. Okay. Who would like to speak next who hasn't spoken yet?
We have Mr. Buckley and Ms. Gibbs online.
Okay. Who wants to go? Who was first? Anybody? Well, ladies first. Go ahead, Elaine Gibbs. Welcome.
Thank you. I will be quick. I've submitted my email to you, but I would like to expand a little bit. Safety should come first. If Penrose cannot do that, they need to walk away. One of my recommendations was to remove Building 6, which is the one to the immediate left of the entranceway. It literally hangs over a ravine. If there were to be a fire, you can see where the fire trucks, if they had to access the back of the building to get a child out, or if a child fell, they would not be able to do so. That building should be eliminated. It will increase the green space, more parking, since these people are trapped out there with no alternative parking if the lot's full when they come home. I also would recommend that you request the liability policies for both Penrose and Chatham, because Penrose for developing it, where safety is an issue, and for Chatham for approving it. Because I think there are going to be serious, when Penrose tells kids to plan ravines as an alternative to green space, we have a problem. That is not acceptable. Those ravines are dangerous. Kids can get lost, they can get trapped, they can get hurt.
Anything that's
I
not
think
in
the
your letter
quality
that
of
we
life
could?
is very
that we
unsafe,
could
and
hear?
if you would.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just I hope people will focus on Dave Farrell's photographs of the quality of construction after 5 years. If that's the condition of the exterior, those windows are leaking, and I can't imagine what the interior walls are like. They are cutting costs on materials in order for profits, and that's the problem when you're dealing with a for-profit company. That's totally unacceptable, and everybody should go up and see the quality of Nauset Green. It is disgraceful. Those buildings are going to fall down within a matter of years, or it's going to cost a fortune to repair them. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Steve Buckley, please go ahead. We're talking about Meeting House, you probably know that, right?
Right. And yes, but this is an issue that applies to both Penrose properties or future properties as it is. Parking. I believe that having lived off Cape for 25 years before returning back to my hometown of Chatham, I lived in a number of different places with my family. And as a young couple with children, we lived in a townhouse development with a common parking area and assigned spots. And occasionally people would park in, quote, our assigned spots. And there was some contentiousness there, but what I'm trying to point out is that if there were no assigned spots and you're coming home with packages and young children in the weather, and had happened before where you had to walk all the way, hundreds of feet away with, like I said, trying to come in through the weather with young children on a day, and guess what? You're going to remember that for a long time. So if there's only one spot, if there can be one assigned spot, then I'm telling you as an expert in living in these places, as a user, as a tenant, that's the expertise, the life experience that you should be listening to, not the landlord. The landlord isn't the one who's going to be walking across from all the way across the other side of the complex in the rain with toddlers and packages, so don't leave it to the quote unquote experts, meaning the landlord, because I would love to hear the story, their experience about how that works out, because having done that, having been through that whole experience for years and years, I would love to hear a story about how it worked out better the other way. So that's my advice to you on both properties, that there be at least one spot
Okay.
for each unit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That looks like it concludes the remarks for today. Is that possible?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk to the board. Let's talk to Penrose Board. Who wants to go first? Anybody? Oh, you want to rebut? Sure,
Yeah, I'd just
respond.
like to say one thing for the board. We look forward to continuing to work with you. As much as Mr. Nixon and I don't necessarily always see eye to eye, he mentioned passion and reason earlier this afternoon. You are hearing a ton of passion, and I would venture to say, besides the fact that much of it is libelous and slanderous, it's also not reasoned. So as you look, and I know you will, as you continue to review the process, I'm hope that you will be looking, there is passion, but also that you're using reason as you look at the project, just because there is an awful lot of the lack of one that you've been hearing from the public. Thank you.
Okay. And Rio?
Oh, no, I have nothing further to add
Sure.
in terms of responding to the public comments.
Yeah, okay. Does anyone from the board want to talk about should we be talking about Ty and Bond today?
You can, so the changes that were submitted in your November 6th supplemental materials, if you wanted to, comment on the dumpsters, the bike trail, the additional peer review response that we received, the buffer plantings that they have shown on these set of plans, any of those things that the board would like to remark on, or anything else.
Does anybody have the strength and the ambition today? Or do you want to take time to, yeah, go ahead, Jenny. Maybe you'll spark some.
It might deviate a little bit from Sarah's parameters, but I just had some questions about.
No, yeah, please.
Okay, so, and a comment, thank you for moving the dumpster away from the bakers. I had brought that up. Would there be any possibility to swap out Building 6 for a Building A? Because it is, that's just a question, you don't have to answer it right now, but it is a large building right on the edge of that ravine, and I too was just wondering if it was a little oversized for that particular spot, so that was a question.
I'm sorry, Ginny, which buildings are we talking about?
Building 6, swapping out C for an A,
Make sure.
just a
That's
smaller
6?
profile. Yes, that's 6,
Okay.
yeah.
So C for an A in that, that's what you're, just so we understand what you're asking.
That's what I was asking, yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Because of just the size of that building, and it does appear as though it's really on the edge. So that was just a question for consideration. And was the Baker's driveway resolved? Because when I'm looking at this plan, it does look like their driveway, a portion of their driveway crosses over the property line. And then what about the current driveway that Ms. Hicks and the Baker family share today? So the point about, previously, Ms. Hicks, as an example, could leave her house and walk to the bike trail. And now, with your property there, how does she get to the bike trail? So I just want to resolve a little bit of those engineering items, or understand it better.
Sure. Okay, I guess I'll start with Mrs. Hicks. I believe we have a solution that works for both of us in terms of reconfiguring her driveway. The existing access way that both her and Mr. Baker use would be discontinued, but she did bring up the idea of wanting to access the bike trail, considering how difficult it is to add, almost impossible to add a sidewalk along Meeting House. So we are looking at options to have the path there and just figuring out how to get it back up to the bridge so that she can then continue with those accessible ways down to the bike path. Which would be the ways our residents would go as well.
Okay, so you are aware of that concern and are working on that?
Yes.
Okay.
And in terms of Mr. Baker, we've made a couple of adjustments that he had requested. The primary ones were moving the dumpster, which we've done. And then you can see we've added substantial screening along the property border. What you don't see, and what he sees with the plan we sent to him yesterday, is a proposal to add even more substantial landscaping, but it's not shown here because it would be on his property.
Okay. When I met him many months ago, there was some discrepancy about his driveway. Has that been resolved? And it looks like that's his parking, that's the corner of his house, but that's his parking area. And it looks in one of these plans like it crosses over the line.
That's right, it does, yeah, and it would have to be removed
Okay,
for this to work, yeah. So what we proposed to was building a new parking area for him,
for him, okay.
yes.
All right. And I just want to say, I agree with Mr. Buckley that I like the assigned parking, and I like it for Main Street too.
Okay, who wants to go next? Yes, please, Lee.
I had some concerns about building number 6 as well, and I had the same thought as Ginny, to maybe switch it out for a building A, or to, instead of the building number 1, which is a building A, having the management building as part of the building, would it be possible, would you consider, and you don't have to answer this now, but would you consider putting the management building where building 6 is? And which would be probably a smaller building. You might even be able to move over building C a little bit, getting a little bit more green space. I don't know how it would all work out, but that building 6 does make me nervous. And I don't think it would be a bad place for the management building to be located, but those are just some of my thoughts. I do also want to say I appreciate you moving the dumpster. I think that's a pretty good spot for it. I am also in favor of at least 1 parking space per unit. I know if I lived there, I would like to be able to count on the fact that I had at least 1 spot. The additional plantings look great. And I guess I would, in a perfect world, I'd love to see a sidewalk. Is there any way to put one on the other side of Meeting House Road, which then, of course, would require another crosswalk, but,
This side over here?
yeah, the other side. But just some of my thoughts, that's all.
Got it, yeah.
So the management building is in the back. Isn't it just part and parcel of a building with units in it?
That's right.
So
It's
can you
very
explain that just for the benefit of all of us one more time?
Sure. So this is a combined management and residential building. It includes management space, offices, also maintenance, storage space, which is all on the first floor. This building is approximately, I think, 5,800 square feet.
Wow.
The Type C building, which Building 6 is down here, is slightly bigger. I mean, they're roughly the same size, but that's 6,030 square feet.
Stand up.
So they're very similar sized buildings. So I think swapping them might not be helpful. I mean, this one, even though it's a smaller building, with square footage, the footprint's bigger. So it might not fit here or have, overhang in this where the grade drops sharply even more.
Yes, Lee,
I
please.
guess I was thinking of the management building as a standalone building, not part of the A. And, I mean, you could even put a type C building where the type A, building number 1 is.
What is it that makes people, and I share your concern, but maybe we could better articulate, what don't we like about the way that building is in the front? The way,
I
that
don't.
it's just like
Yeah, that it's hanging.
awkward,
Yes, it's very awkward, it's large, it's,
bulky.
yeah, and maybe it does mean reducing some of the units.
And streetscape is not particularly attractive with that? Because that's what you're going to see. You're going to come down the hill, and that's
You're
going to
gonna-
be right there.
You're going to see that, yes. I mean, I think from a convenience standpoint, the management building would be much better there. I mean, you've spoken about seeing people coming and going, being kind of centrally located. Just a thought. I mean, and maybe it does mean a reduction in units slightly. If you swap building 1 with building 6. And then you just make a standalone management building.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Yeah.
We can take a look at that. The reduction in units is going to be difficult, but maybe there's a way we can get something to work there. It would be and then pushing density off in another location.
We appreciate you taking a look at it, and we'll talk about that next meeting, which I think is going to be December 10th, just so you know, which is a Wednesday, so it's just going to throw you off.
Wednesday?
Yeah. Yep, it's the best we could do.
Okay.
Okay, who else wants to add some input today? Steve, please.
Well, I guess today is the day to talk about Building 6. I don't like that building at all. It's actually the tallest building. I think it's 36 feet, 3 inches tall. I would like to either see that eliminated completely and possibly sliding Building 5 over a bit to give some more green space or playground space on that side of the project. Or eliminate it as a residence building and put a smaller admin maintenance building there. 1 story, with no residents.
I believe Building 5 and Building 6 are the same exact buildings, so it would effectively be the same height. I think it's just in terms of the waivers, because of
Well,
the average drop in
I have
grade.
building 5 is 35 feet too.
It's for calculation purposes, Steve. It's because of how the zoning bylaw calculates zoning, height, looking at the different sides. The buildings are physically the same.
No, I understand.
But for zoning, we had this conversation earlier.
did,
you know.
yes.
For zoning calculation purposes, you get a different number. Now, that being said, Mark has prepared a sketch which, through moving retaining wall, forget what happens to building 6 eventually, but through changing retaining walls, so changing the grades, you can actually keep the same building and the height becomes lower even though the building's not changing. So that is something, I'm not sure if we can show it to you necessarily today, but we certainly can.
We have time, yep, okay. I mean, for another day to do it, sure. Paul, did you want to do anything today in terms of comments?
No, I'm maxed out for today.
Yeah, I hear you, brother.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, I would have pointed out what Andrew just said, because I can see if there's any difference in height, it's what the grading at this point between those two buildings. No, I'm kind of done, thanks.
Mr. Nixon? Not today? I want to go back to Miss Hicks' driveway. I mean, I've been paying attention, as I mentioned before, all along the way with this. And I'm sure that a lot of other people understand that right now, she comes out safely. And that safe way to get out is going to be unavailable. So in order to get out, she'd have to sort of pull up and then take her chances with turning the wheel. I've done it, I tried it, because obviously we go there, and it's ridiculously, it's not an option, you know? So where are we with that?
Our proposed design, which I believe she said was acceptable, was to move the driveway to straighten it to Meeting House, so you could easily take a left or right.
Okay,
Because she's losing the way, if she wants to go right, she can't go out her current driveway, she has to travel down basically the dirt paper road to get out.
right.
So she won't need to do that, so we're
No.
rearranging.
You're going to give her a straight out,
Yes, correct.
okay, her own driveway, and you're going to pay,
Yes.
okay?
And we're also expanding it for a turnaround area for her at her request.
Oh, okay, so I just don't think we had clarity on that. Maybe I'm on an island with that, but that's good to know.
And just to
Yeah.
clarify, that the same goes for Mr. Baker's property.
Sure.
Penrose is proposing a new driveway that would come out, to Meeting House, that they are proposing to do.
Okay, well, good to know. That's your position right now. Yes, please, Steve.
One more question. The dumpster in its new location, is that diagonal wing off the center island there? Right.
Yes.
So how is the pickup proposed? The truck is going to drive straight in?
Yes, it will, with a front load of Joe.
Sure, yeah, so the
Oh.
truck would come in and, with a front-load truck,
Yes.
right, be able to pick
Yes.
up the
Yeah.
bins, back out, and then recirculate back around the property and out. So come in,
Yeah,
pick up,
yeah.
back out, and
And there's
then,
room enough for them to get around that
Yep.
spot there? Okay.
yeah, there's room enough for the town's largest ladder truck to circulate.
Okay, all right, thank you.
One dumpster for the site for 42 units?
That is correct, so there would be more frequent pickups.
Okay, any chance there could be a dumpster and a half or 2 dumpsters or?
We had a tough time, I mean, this is not ideal for us, obviously, this worked very well, but it was an accommodation to the neighbor to move it here.
Sorry, I was just going to point out, that's the enclosure for the dumpsters, so there could be multiple that would fit in there, so that the enclosure would have, I think you would say,
Oh, okay.
recycling and potentially several bins could fit in that enclosure area. So it's been expanded larger than normal.
Okay. Well, can you address the issue of this ravine and the safety, and what are your thoughts on that? I mean, we hear about it a lot. you know? I have to go there. I have not put my boots on yet, but I would like to see what everybody's talking about. I admit that I have not. Have you?
Yes, yeah, I've gone up and down it a bunch of times
Okay.
on the ticks. There's a bunch of winterberry there, which is very pretty. I guess it would be dangerous if you start running full speed down the hill, but it's not it's difficulty to build buildings on it, but people, it's safe for hiking or walking through. It's very thick, you know, with brush right now, but I've walked this up several times with town staff. Gloria McPherson, I think Katie, who's still here, has walked it with me.
I'll do it for next time. That's my homework.
Yeah, I don't think it's a public safety hazard at all.
No.
And there is a play area which is shown, which is not, I hear those comments that Ms. Gibbs keeps making, but, you know, there is a dedicated play area that is not the area that Rhea was just describing. to
It's
you.
not just her. Other people have mentioned it, so, you know. Whenever there's a body of water, that's the first thing I think of. I'm an anti-pool person, so think about that.
There's no standing water here, you know, maybe in a short-term period after a large storm, but it's mostly dry.
Okay.
All the time. Also point out, you know, there's a lot of areas for children to play. There's the twining field, which is right behind the property. We have the amenities we put together here on site, and then they also have access to the bike path.
Right, yeah, which is great. Sure. Okay. Yes, Mr. Nope, okay. And that appears, how about, that's it for today? And you can.
Great, thank you very much.
December 10th at 2 o'clock.
So Paul, we do
Yes.
need a motion. December,
Do I hear a motion to adjourn to?
yeah.
Continue the public hearing.
Continue the public hearing to December 10, 2025?
Yes, Wednesday.
I do hear a motion to that
No,
effect.
you're making the
making the
motion.
motion.
They
Thank you.
have the request.
Thank you, Mr. Singer.
Yes, the request.
Thank you for that request.
Yes, that was the request.
I'll move to grant Mr. Singer's request for a continuance to December 10, 2025.
Sounds like a plan.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes enthusiastically.
Yeah, say yes, Mr. Nixon.
Yes.
Paul?
All votes yes.
Jeannie votes yes.
As do I. Okay, now we need a motion to adjourn. Paul?
I'll move to adjourn.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
David Nixon, yes.
All
I think
right,
so.
all right.
Yeah.
All
Paul?
votes yes.
I vote yes.
Lee?
Steve votes yes.
Steve?
Jeannie votes
And-
yes.
Okay, Randy as well. What time is it?
5:12 PM.
Okay, thank you, everybody.